I call to order the meeting of the Mayor and Council and Citizen Budget Committee. We thank our citizens for being a part of this committee, giving their time. Um, this meeting has been posted through the Ridgewood News and on the borough website and fulfills all the obligations of open public meetings. This is an electronic meeting, so when and if we open to the public, I will ask our moderator, Michelle Kaufman, Councilwoman Kaufman, to handle that. You can hit *9 if you're monitoring from a phone, and you can raise your hand in the system if you are calling in. At this time, I don't know if we do have any attendees. Is it just panelists at this point?
Yes.
All right, then. So just to recap, last week we began looking at the capital budget and we put off the operational budget. Michelle Kaufman is also our finance chair, and Chris Bagtaglia. Did I say it right this time?
It's Battaglia, yes.
Battaglia. Sorry, I'm getting closer. Is our CFO. Liz Apatella is our BA. Of course, we have our citizens and our department heads, and of course the council, and so we thank them. So last week we tentatively approved vehicles and equipment for the police department. We tentatively approved the fire department capital budget. We tentatively approved the administration and the public works. This week we also tentatively approved roads and sidewalks and improvements. I know we're going to come back to that today. I've had a conversation with our superintendent of DPW, Jason Melito, in that regard. We've approved our sewer emergency repairs. What do we have left in capital? Facility improvements and parks and fields. Madam Chair, do you have a preference?
No.
All right. Mr. Melito, I know that there is, you have looked at the numbers with Mr. Battaglia, and you would like for us to amend our tentative approval of roads and sidewalks. So, Mr. Melito, I will recognize you.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, last week we went over our parking lots, and we were switching from the KBG to 4 other parking lots through the borough. At that time, I noticed that that was just a basic mill and pave, those numbers. On a little bit down the sheet, there's ADA and sidewalks and other things that went with those parking lots that weren't in the parking lot specs. This would have to be done in-house. This is not something the co-op would be doing. There is retaining wall work when it comes to River Ridge Road 10, sidewalk work and curb work to do this correctly in one time to be good for 25 years. With that being said, it jumps the price up substantially. So I just wanted to go over with this committee, just pretty much what the changes were. Whether we could still mill and pave and just go through it like that, or we could do it the right way. And
so, Jason, why don't we go straight to what is your recommendation?
Retain.
I would put it up on the screen, Mr. Mayor, so we can all see what we're talking about.
Sure. Chris, if you could put up roads and sidewalks improvements from the capital budget. All right,
Okay.
Jason.
So last week, these numbers were a little bit less. As you can see, it jumped up to 176 to do the train lot. It was last week at 89,000. My suggestion would be to do the train lot properly. Going through, that would be off of River Edge Road, doing the retaining wall that we have there that's falling apart. It's a 4x4 wall. and steps, sidewalks, curbs that are coming from the bridge to the train tracks. Again, this would not be a co-op item because we are doing the wall and all the concrete work. So this would have to be an in-house design through our engineer. So that adds to the cost and other things. My suggestion is to do this right so it's done for 25 years. We don't have to go back. It's almost like the same theory as last week was described with KBG. If we pave it and then down the road the retaining wall falls over, we'd be going back and cutting the asphalt that we had paved and have equipment on there. Again, this was in the budget, but it was just in a different part of the budget with the ADA. And I forgot to mention that because we sort of moved them, and that was just the paving end that we moved.
All right. Are there questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Michelle.
Sorry. It looks like the numbers for the out years went up for the Borough Hall. I know that's not really pertinent to right now, but why did those three numbers go up for those 23, 24, and 25?
Again, that's the same theory here. They have a lot of concrete work that's around them. Again, it is in the ADA where the portion in your budget is where it says ADA sidewalks. That part was in there. So if you're going to do the sidewalk, if you're going to do the parking lot, you have to do all that together. It was just spread out. It was in a different area of the budget. So now we just merged them into the parking lots.
Okay, Councilman Gaudier, your hands is up.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question. In my book, the north train lot is only 83,446. So the sidewalks cost more than the paving itself?
So what you have over on that side, you have a retaining wall and you have a 6-foot wide sidewalk that goes from the bridge to the train tracks with an ADA ramp. Plus you have a staircase involved going down to our shade tree building. Also, you have some railings to bring it up to specs. And of course, now, since you're leaving the co-op, you have architects, design and all that, engineering and all that involved that we would have to pick up. So the cost does go up. There's also cops in there. So all the soft costs are included in that too, where they would be included in the co-op if we just milled and paved.
Okay, at this point, I thought I saw, well, all right, the only hand up is Councilman Canigo, so we'll go to Councilman Canigo.
Thank you, Mayor.
Council President.
Thank you. Just a simple thought here. We switched out the two, not because we were trying to save money, but because there's a project going on in KGB that will necessarily impact this. So as long as the figure doesn't increase above the 189 that we switched out, for me, this is no difference in our budget whatsoever. So I'm fine with this change.
Any other member? I see only Council President Canigo's hand up. Is there any other member who would like to speak? Any member of the Citizen Budget Committee would like to speak or ask a question? Seeing none, without objection, we will approve the change so that we put the north lot in at 176K and move the Fire Company 1, Borough Hall and Police Department, Fire Company number 2, 2 years, 23, 24, and 25 respectively. Is there objection? Hearing none, it is so approved. Madam President, do you wish to go to facilities improvements or do you parks and fields, or do you want to leave that up to Mr. Melito?
Mr. Melito.
Mr. Melito, where would you like to go next? Jason, you're muted.
I guess let's just go to buildings. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to facilities and improvements. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So we do have a library at the top and we have Mr. O'Connor here. So Jason, why don't you, and of course we have rec and we have Mrs. Baldanza here. We have fire. I believe we have the fire chief here. Chief Sanders is here. Yes. We have police, and we have Chief. I thought we had one of our lieutenants. Yes, Lieutenant Casey is here. Um, where would you like to start with, Mr. Melito? Jason, you're muted again.
Fire company, I guess fire company one, the HVAC units, fire one, two, that whole area. That's what I have here.
All right, so you want to do with, this is for our, this is the, here we go. We can see it now. It is, it's fire, 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 and it's the fourth item down. 10,000, 40,000, 48,000. If you could just explain to the committee and to the public why we need these improvements and what they hope to achieve.
No problem. Last year, we've had numerous failures on the HVAC units in Firehouse 1 and 2. These units are 20 plus years old. On Fire Company 1, we started replacing them. We replaced one out of the 3 systems. This would replace the other 2 systems that are gone bad and were suggested by one of our vendors who repairs them. That number is for Fire Company 1 is not correct, Chris. On the sheet, it's actually $25,000. It's not 10. And Fire Company 2 was, I believe, Fire Company 2 was $10,000. Look, a second. Those numbers are a little off. I'm sorry. Fire Company 2 is correct. Fire Company 1 is supposed to say 25,000.
I believe on the screen it does say 25,000. In the book,
Wait.
of course, it says 10, 40, 48, but on screen now it says 25, 40, 48. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct right there. So the extra 2 units at Company 1 would be 25,000. That would complete Company 1's HVAC for the next 25 years since we started this year. Fire Company 2 has multiple units that are out. Some of the units that are still running are picking up the slack, but they're pretty much on their way out too. This would also do the full replacement down there. Plus, some of these units have been flooded out and underwater. So again, these are systems that have been in place for 20 years and seen numerous storms and other things. So that's the 2 HVAC units, the DPW, the firehouse roof and overhang. They are 23 years old to 24 years old. There's a lot of valleys and that snow sit in. And pretty much the roofs are coming up. It wasn't really done properly when it was put together. A lot of the snow guards weren't put in right or done correctly. So this would solve all their leaking issues in the second floor and throughout the building over their communications desk. Again, we've had numerous problems where we had to call vendors in to pretty much Band-Aid the roof until we can get a solution. And we do have a lot of equipment in there, especially over the radio room. The roof over that is leaking like a sieve. Again, there was no snow guards put in place or no snow protection put in place or any of that. So this would eliminate all those problems.
Okay, we have a couple of questions, Madam Chair.
So just wondering what's being done to protect the new HVAC from future flooding?
They would actually be put up on bricks, like they would be put up higher. So outside where they're sitting on the ground, there would actually be a platform put and they would be raised.
How
At
much?
least 2 feet.
Okay.
So, I mean, after that, you can't do any more than 2 feet down there.
Council President is next.
Is the 2 feet enough?
Yes. All the flooding that we've had down there, with the 2006 flooding was the worst. So the highest that went was about 1.5 feet. And the fire chiefs, if they know a little bit more, they were involved in that down there. So if they want to chime in, and if that's not enough, I would have to look for another way to do it. But what I've seen when I was here, it only rose about 1.5 feet through the whole floor.
I'm just saying, because if we're gonna do it, maybe 3 feet. I mean, let's make sure that it doesn't happen. The 6 inches doesn't give me any sort of level of comfort, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, well, I'll definitely look into that, and I'll definitely talk to the chiefs, make sure that we're doing it at the right height. That's just the platform, and the way we just are coming into the wall. That's all. Just
I'll leave it up to you guys. I just don't want to hear 3 or 4 years down the road, well, we miscalculated. We got a little more water than we thought was possible.
No,
If we're gonna make the fix, let's fix it right.
exactly.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. Jason, these three costs include soft cost on all three lines?
So when you're talking about the AC units, it's just a replacement.
Yeah, but
This
the placing then and all that, including, technical whatever to
Yes, this
place
is
them.
everything that goes on. We do not need on a replacement engineering and all that. We're replacing the existing units. So we would be able just to use outside vendors in the 3-quote system. If we were updating the system, then we would need engineers or architects to try to figure out walls and all that. That's where the soft costs would come in. But since these systems are just pretty much replacements, we're good. These numbers will cover all that.
And that's true to the roof as well?
Yes, the roof is just a simple, we're not doing any metal roof or anything like that. We're doing a simple layover of the roof with, rip down and just new shingles with all the new updated materials that they have.
Okay, just a little technical note for everyone present. If you want to raise your hand in the meet, because I can't see all the images, what you would do is you click on participants, you get a pop out on the right-hand side, and at the bottom right of the participant pop out is a item that says raise hand. So if you wish to raise your hand, the way I'd ask you to do it is through the Zoom technology. So you'd click participants in the center bottom. When the pop out comes up at the right bottom, you'll see a button for raise hand, and you'll be able to do that. I do not see any other hands. So if there is no objection, we will approve the item for company number 1, company number 2 that are in the, so is there objection? Hearing none, that it is so approved. Do you wish to move to rec, library, or DPW? Mr. Melito. Jason, don't mute yourself. Stay open.
I did not put these other,
Okay,
I did
So-
not put the other 3 in. I guess that would be the library and recreation that's done that. So I guess
what about at the bottom, emergency repair program, 75K?
that's for buildings. That again, that's a contingency plan. Just like Chris was explaining last week with the equipment and with the sewer repairs. It's pretty much it's a running line just in case there's an emergency. It's a contingency. So if something bad happens to any of the buildings that we're not scraping for money, it is a rollover from year to year, and we're trying to maintain that
Okay.
75,000.
Councilman Gaudier.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add to that. We have used that in the past. For example, when the sewer line broke at Borough Hall, we used the emergency repair program line. Thank you.
Okay, Council President Kaniga.
Just for the public's information, the Finance Committee did discuss this, and we believe that it should continue to be on the budget.
Any citizen question or comment? Okay, without objection, if there's no objection, we will tentatively approve DPW, the bottom line, DPW Emergency Repair Program, $75,000. Is there objection? Hearing none, so approved. All right, let's work back up. Ms. Baldanza, our Rec Director, would you please speak to your item?
Yes. Hi, good morning, everyone. So the item for Wi-Fi is in support of the camera, the security cameras that we had approved last year in Capital. And we realized we needed some more support on the Wi-Fi end in order to effectively have our security cameras. So the department has been getting a lot of feedback regarding the bathrooms being locked year round for participants. It's typically, they're only open when we have events or programs out there. So the commission would like to have them more available for the residents, but with that, we feel like we need to monitor the outside. So that is all in support of the same project, the Wi-Fi that goes with the cameras to secure the bathrooms.
Okay, Council President Kaniga.
Carolyn, do these cameras also include cameras near the bathrooms at the Little League field?
I have spoken with Rob regarding potentially expanding to that, and so the Wi-Fi, yes, it included in this is extension to the Wi-Fi to the Little League building.
So this would account for the Little League building.
Correct.
And do we have cameras that we've already purchased or approved funds for that building?
The funds for the Little League building, not as yet, but for the Memorial Park, yes. I have been talking with Little League because I think they were looking to contribute to that, but we just wanted to kind of get a handle on Memorial Park, the camp building, but there are plans to expand to Little League.
Yeah, I would just ask that you try to include that in the project so we do it all at once.
Okay.
So I think it's just as important over there as it is in the other portion of it. And I don't want people saying, why did you do it on one side and not the other side? So
Okay.
let's try to get it all done together.
All right, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Will that require additional funds?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
most likely, yes.
So we don't have that currently in this year's budget. So would you give us perhaps maybe our BA or our Mr. Battaglia or our chair, what would be the approximate amount that we would need to add to capital for those? Does anybody know? Ballpark.
If we can refer back to the capital from 2019 or 2020 rather, the cameras, I would say it would cost the same that we have already allocated or encumbered for that project. So I would estimate it to be the same.
Chris, could you take a few moments and find that, and then we'll return to this issue. I have some hands up. I'm going to first go to our chair.
Just wondering, do you think Little League might be able to cover the whole thing for that piece of it?
That was what we were discussing, that they would perhaps cover that. So that's why it wasn't included. But if the council feels that is a borough expense that we should, cover, then that's the direction we could go for sure.
I mean, I think it would be great if the Little League wants to cover it. So.
Councilman Gaudier and then Council President Kanigo.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is, as far as the plans for the restrooms, so the restrooms in the main building would be open more often, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Or both the bathrooms in the main building and the over by the Little League?
It would be the camp building, because the Little League
Okay.
building is specific to when they have activities over there, but the main
Gotcha.
camp building, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Council President.
Yeah, I think it would be good if Little League covers this expense. We can't forget that these organizations, even though they're run by outside volunteers, they still fall within a rec. And we as a mayor and council over the years have historically given them permission to levy the costs of running the programs because of that, they have funds available. So I would ask that they, please consider helping us out and contribute to these cameras. And I also just wanted to point out that right above the rec Wi-Fi Memorial Camp building is 2 outdoor cameras for the library that are $1,400. So I can't see that they would be much more expensive than somewhere around $1,000.
Council President, if you look at the screen, we now have a number.
Well, I don't know how many cameras that is. I'm saying that right above it says 2 cameras for $1,400. So we know that 2 cameras can be bought for $1,400. So it depends how many cameras they want to put out there. I don't know if it's 1 camera, more than 1 camera, but that's for rec and Little League to work out, and DPW obviously. And I think the police should also have some input because maybe they have some ideas as to what should be done with respect to surveillance in that area.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so if I'm understanding the will of those who are speaking at this point, it would be not to include it in our budget, but to ask Little League pay for that. We have 2 different numbers. We have 2 for 1,400 and another one for 6,300. And that it would be the will of the council, if without objection, that Ms. Baldenza coordinate with the police department and with Little League to make sure that those cameras were put in place this year, but it would not be from our budget. Is Ms. Councilwoman Matstankonen?
I was on mute, I'm sorry. Just wanted to understand who the surveillance of the camera, who monitors that? I guess I never understood that.
It's not a 24/7 monitor of a person, watching, but the system we were looking into detects activity that's not in the normal situation, and then it could send you a message to your phone. So that's why the Wi-Fi is important, because you're not then having to go into the building and pull up the system. Wherever you are, it's a little more mobile, like where you can check the system. So if something happened and if an event happened, we would, go back into the system and take a look. But like I had mentioned, it tracks in not normal activity and would give you, alert you that something is going on.
The Council President and I are thinking the same thing. You're basically saying the same basic technology as the Ring doorbell system.
Sure, yes.
Okay. So any questions from our citizens or any other member of the committee? Hearing none, without objection, we will be approving $7,480 for the Wi-Fi Memorial Park Camp building. Is there objection? Hearing none, it is 10.
Sorry, Dario had one more comment.
Oh, I see it now. Thank you. Council President.
Just a question whether the police has been asked about this. We have Lieutenant Casey here. Perhaps he wants to chime in on some of the surveillance stuff.
Yeah, we have actually now both Lieutenant Casey and Lieutenant Walker.
Forgive me, I didn't see Walker.
LTs, would either one of you wish to comment?
Well, as of right now, I haven't spoke to Carolyn about it. It's the first I'm hearing the cameras are going up. That was going to be one of my questions: who is monitoring the system, or was it going to be a more so used for an after the fact versus preventative? think that's something I'm gonna have to sit and talk with Carolyn for a bit so we can figure some stuff out. I don't think we're gonna knock that out today.
No, and this wouldn't be the correct form for that,
Correct.
but I appreciate that, LT.
Can I just
Elton,
comment?
If
I'm
I
sorry.
could, go ahead.
Lieutenant Walker, go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with Lieutenant Casey. You know, the one thing about cameras, when you have them up, people are gonna, you know, tend to feel that they're being, that they are gonna be monitored. So, you know, generally, like Oradell has the DPAC is monitored by the police department. They can see it at their headquarters. So, you know, well, it is something I think we should sit down and discuss whether or not we want it to be a follow-up or something that, you know, we monitor things at the police desk like the schools 24/7. You know, I think we have to discuss it.
I think that discussion is a good thing to do. Carolyn, you have no objection to that, I would think.
No, and I just wanted to add that this conversation I had with Chief Caridi, and I'm trying to recall because I know somebody else was there. Mike, it may have been you. We had like initial conversation. It may have been in 2019. But of course, you know, it's a team effort here. So I have no objection with you know, working together and further discuss. But I do know that that was one of the concerns, that they're not going to sit there and monitor. It was, if something happened, we have a document to go back and take a look to investigate. So yes, that's understood.
Council President.
Well, it sounds like from what Mike said that perhaps there is an option to have the police monitor. And, you know, perhaps the police won't mind doing that. It seems like a no-brainer that if we have the cameras there and there is an ability to monitor, that we should have the police have a screen dedicated to this. So I'm wondering whether we should allocate a little more money so that perhaps if it comes to it, we can get whatever equipment the police needs to monitor this. You know, again, I'm of the mindset that if we're going to do it, let's do it right. If it costs a little more now, it's better than having to come back and try to find funds down the line. And then people ask us, why didn't you do it right in the first place? Why didn't you think about these things? So that's basically my thought, and perhaps somebody else from the council can chime in on it. But I think we should, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. Let's give it the money it needs. It's not huge money figures that we're talking about here, especially when contrasted with the rest of the budget. I think it's important in this day and age to have a camera system in a public park that is used as much as Memorial Park is, to allow the police to view this. And this obviously is something that impacts the police greatly. The Rec Commission is correct in its thinking and wise in trying to do this, but let's do it right.
Madam Chair.
Just wondering, for the lieutenants, can you just add to the screen you already have? You know, is it broken up, your screen, for different pictures for different sites? So can it just go on to the screen you already have?
So we have a large screen that was purchased for us between the three school systems, that being the Yeshiva, Roosevelt, and Cherry Hill, and Riverdale. I'm sorry, Riverdale schools and the Yeshiva, but it's kind of dedicated to them. I would imagine we probably could make, you know, you would be adding another system to it to view on the screen, but we would probably look to add another smaller screen, I'm thinking. That way it's dedicated and you can see it all the time. Once you start adding too many too many systems, then you're not watching them, you know, as intently as you probably should.
And they're lagging out.
Okay.
The more they throw on there, the less the quality gets on our end.
Okay.
Where the screen will freeze up more often and whatnot. We tend to try to bring up one school at a time, just due to the amount of cameras from each location. So for all three schools to be up on the screen at the same time, the system just couldn't handle that. So like Lieutenant Walker was saying, to throw another system on top of that, we'd have to come up with something completely separate from that to have it operate, excuse me, properly.
All right. Councilwoman Bastide and then Mr. Rowland.
Thank you, Mayor. This isn't really a budget question, but since we're having a thorough conversation about this, would the borough have an obligation if these cameras were being monitored 24/7 by the police to either post notice of that? I don't know what our obligation would be to inform people using the facilities that they will be monitored 24/7. It's just a question to be thought about. It doesn't have to be answered now. I just wanted to put it out there.
So
Thank you.
we're gonna ask the LTs to think about that and maybe touch base with Mr. Sarlo because Councilwoman Bastide is right. We're kind of going deep into more of a policy part instead of a budget. In a minute, I'm going to ask for the council, and we're going to go to Mr. Ruhlman in a second. I'm going to ask the council to approve an additional not to exceed $10,000 to the 7,480, and then if with the finance chair and the finance committee and Mr. Bagtaglia, if they find that it's less than 10,000, they would reduce the number in the budget before it is introduced. If it's more, then they would bring it to the next council meeting, because this will probably be our last budget committee meeting. But before I ask for that motion, Mr. Ruhlman.
If I'm correct, if I'm remembering correctly, didn't the police department budget for a new console at the and weren't well, is this, I mean, we're looking, you seem to be talking about doing something with the old console. If it's, you're going to put in a new console.
So, Mr. Rollman, what we approved is the radio portion of the update. The police are thinking we should also do a council port, communication center, which is the computer center and structure, which is what you're referring to now. And that would be, if we did it, would be considered for next year's budget. It's $385,000 more. We approved $398,000 and change for the radios.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I do not see any hands. So could I have, without objection, we're going to change the rec number from 7,480 to 17,480 with the understanding that that may need to be modified at a council meeting prior to the introduction. Is there objection? Okay. So that will be reviewed by the finance chair, Councilwoman Kaufman as chair, and Mr. Battaglia with our BA and other necessary contributors or stakeholders such as our two lieutenants. All right, so we have moved to library. Mr. O'Connor.
Hello, everyone. Okay,
Hi.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Dara. Go ahead.
Okay, so if you're talking about capital,
yes, we're only talking about capital at this moment. We will be moving to operating budget a little bit later.
Okay, so I also have a security camera project that has been we've been looking to do for many years. We had a fairly serious incident about 5-6 years ago. And I believe the borough was reluctant to go forward because you had plans for the community center, and you felt possibly that doing the community center and the library at the same time was wise. But anyway, now it looks like we have the funds to do it this year, and we're looking at 2 outdoor cameras and 5 indoor, and then the network video recorder as well. It's a similar deal to what REC has requested in that. Doesn't require constant monitoring, but it's a system whereby if there is an incident, you can access video information after the fact.
Okay, are there any questions from the committee or the council? Council President Kanigo.
Same question. Has this been vetted through the police?
Yes, I do remember numerous years ago discussing with Chief Caridi His preference was that the library would monitor it, if I remember correctly.
Chief Caridi has retired, so perhaps the two lieutenants could chime in on
Sure
what
thing.
I think.
Yeah, I think that's something else we need to sit down and have a talk.
So we can discuss that going forward later in the year.
Well, you should discuss it before the purchase. So not
Yeah.
so much later in the year, but maybe later, maybe in March.
Okay.
This, Mr. Mayor, would possibly also tie in to the same conversation we just had. Perhaps the police would want to monitor it, and perhaps when we're talking about getting a monitor for the police to look at DPW, we can tie that in and have that tied in similarly to how 3 schools are on 1 monitor currently. Then the second monitor might have DPW and library. So I think police and library should get together on this ASAP.
Yeah, but I don't think we need to change the budget. We've already put 10,000. It's essentially for a monitor capability. So I think we can leave it in the Rex capital, and if necessary, Councilwoman Kaufman and Mr. Battaglia, if they want to move the numbers around prior to the introduction, if there is no objection, I think that's probably the most efficient and practical way of moving forward for today. Is there objection or comment? None. Okay, is there more questions about the 3 items, capital items from the library? Questions, comments? Okay. So without objection, we will tentatively approve the network video recorder indoor dome IP cameras, 2 outdoor IP cameras, I'm sorry, 5 for the indoor, and outdoor IP cameras for 2. Is there objection? Hearing none, we are now moving to Parks and Fields. Carolyn and Jason, how do you want to handle this?
Carolyn, do you want to take the
Yes,
lead? and
I
I'll
was,
just-
yeah, sorry, I was, I was talking, but I was muted. Yeah, I will take the lead because these are my items, but Jason and I did review many of these. So I guess I'll just go down the line. The picnic tables and trash cans, Brookside and Memorial Park. So currently Brookside only has 1 table. So we definitely need some more sitting spaces out there, and the trash cans need to be updated. In addition, Memorial Park, there's some tables that need to be replaced, and adding new tables in other areas as well. So,
Carolyn, if you don't
yeah.
mind, as a procedure, I'd like for you to go through your entire list, and then we can do questions and answers for particular items, okay?
Sure, no problem. Okay, KBG, phase 1, phase 2. So those are both the grants that we applied for. So my understanding is capital needs to support that funding until the project's completed, which then we would get that half back from the county for the grant, and then also open space supports the other half. A concrete update at Little League fields. There's been the concrete over there has been raising and cracking, and there's some tripping hazards there. This was reviewed with Jason, and he helped get that quote for resolving the concrete around there, but there are concerns regarding that safety, because there's a lot of high raised sections. Okay.
Joe, if you could mute yourself, we're getting a lot of background sound. Keep going, Carolyn.
Okay. 2021 open space grant, and I actually noticed these 2 are separated, and this may have been my mistake, but 2021 open space grant and the exercise equipment, those should be combined, so that 40 should be with the exercise equipment. But that is all for the a grant. So again, it's similar, whereas the capital upfronts the funding for that, and then it would be paid through half through open space, and then the other half would be county match. And okay, Little League fence. We walk the perimeter with Little League, and there's a lot of issues with the fence. Which could be safety concerns as well, where the fence is kind of buckling. It's being detached from the bottom of pole, and forgive me if I don't know the technical terms for this, but the bottom pole of the fence is no longer connected to the mesh. So
Carolyn, I'm going to
Yeah.
interrupt you there.
Sure.
I see the Little League fence as in 2022. We would only be asking you to
oh, okay,
speak to 2021.
I apologize.
No. Do you wish to move that amount into 2021, or you were just being thorough?
I was just I guess I was just being thorough. This is my first
No problem.
budget meeting, so I'm
Yeah.
I'm learning the ways.
So the reason we have 2022, for the public's
Yeah.
benefit, 23, 24, 25 is to give the committee and the council a sense of what we're looking for, or what your department would be looking for going forward, so that the council also would have the option, if they wanted to move anything from future years to the current year. But they're just really there as somewhat of a wish list. They are simply things that we want to keep in mind as we move forward, so that we're making an informed decision. So I have Councilman Gaudier and then Mr. Ruhlman. Councilman Gaudier, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. One question. With the concrete around the Little League, could we do that in-house and thus cut the number back? Because that's one of the reasons we were buying the backhoe, so that we could do some of that concrete work in-house.
Mr. Melito.
Joe, so with this, the answer is no. And the reason why is you're up against the foundation. I would suggest, and there is storm drains all throughout this for that building. A lot of.
Okay, so it's technical work.
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's good. Thanks, Jason.
Hey, Mr. Ruhlman.
Just for my own clarity, the open space grant, is that the municipal money or the county money?
It's county. It's the Bergen County open space.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Council President, not Council President, Finance Chair, Councilwoman Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor. So just wondering, that 43,000 open space, is that for this year, or is that for next year with the exercise equipment?
Right. So goes with the, so that's next year. That should go into the 2022.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're not spending the 43
Right.
this year.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I'm sure Chris will make that correction while we speak. Councilwoman Bastide.
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding the KBG ball field upgrades, I had a question. It's in our budget book. It's not on the screen, regarding the application of 170,000 from an old ordinance. If maybe Chris or Lizette could talk to that. And then also, there had been many conversations about contributions from the various leagues towards this project. And is that included in 2021? Is that a future? Do we not know about that? Are we still pursuing that? Thank you.
The one thing I could respond to, the 170,000 money was allocated in last year's capital for this grant project. So that 170,000 is being applied. I do not know anything about the different organizations contributing.
Thank you, Lizette. And could I just ask one more follow-up question?
Sure.
Are any dollars that had previously been allocated for the community center being applied to this project in particular? Thank you.
At this time, none of the community center funding is being applied to any of these projects.
I'm going to recognize Mr. Battaglia. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, Mayor. With regards to these open space projects, before I move this into 2022, the way that the ordinances were done last year, we had the 2019 and 2020 county open space grants, which are those phase 1 and phase 2 projects. The exercise equipment seems to be 2021's project. The reason why the 43.5 was in this current year was the way that it was done last year was we needed the engineering fees up front to be able to put everything together for the grant. And that's so in last year's capital ordinance, we had the $170,000 to fund phase 1. We also had 43.5, which was the same amount to fund the engineering portion of phase 2. The balance of it was in open space and the grant and the open space grant, because last year the decision was made where open space would, the borough's share of open space would now be used towards the grant matching fund so that we can maximize the money that we've received from the county. So I just want to verify if we're going to be starting the engineering on this exercise equipment project, we may need to keep that.
Yeah, I think very much since we did an ordinance and since what you said about open space, we have to leave it in. Would you agree, Ms. Appertella?
Yes, I concur.
Okay, so we're going to have to leave that 43.5 in. We now have Councilman Guardia. Go ahead.
Mayor, I just wanted to bring it to your attention that there's been a question in the chat
Yeah,
that I
for
believe is for the
Constantine that I
previous.
missed. Yeah, I feel bad about that. I was going to come back to it as soon as we finished.
Mayor, I haven't gotten an answer to my question regarding the contribution from the leagues towards this project and or the application of any funds that had been previously allocated towards the community center. Are we applying any of those funds towards this project?
So Lizette, Chris, and Caroline, who would like to take that question?
I could address the league part. I know that was original conversations we had with the league when reviewing Roosevelt, but that conversation has not come up again since we're looking at KBG. So as of now, the answer is no towards the contributions from the leagues, but obviously that's something we can revisit.
When that stakeholder meeting takes place with all of the leagues, I would respectfully request that, unless the council disagrees with me, but that was to be part of the conversation, is the contribution from the leagues towards this type of improvement project. I didn't think it was specific to it being held at Roosevelt.
Okay.
If the council disagrees with me, we can have a debate about that, but it wasn't specific to the Roosevelt project. It was a project like this in general.
Okay.
Is there before we go to Chris, is there any member of council, Council President, can you guys see your hand up? But I want to go to Chris first, unless you have an objection to what Councilwoman Bastide said.
Well, I want to address what Councilwoman Bastide said. I could have answered that before we heard. But do whatever you want.
All right, Mr. Battaglia.
I remember having conversations last year with Ray about potentially getting, I think it was up to about $50,000 in contributions towards this project. When we put the ordinance together without formal documentation, pledging the funds to us, we wouldn't have been able to anticipate them as part of the ordinance. So as of right now, it's not built in. Any money that we would receive as a donation towards this project would go to reduce the debt authorization. With regards to the community center, as of now, nothing here is built on the assumption that we're reallocating funds. However, the internal working plan right now is potentially, since we're going to be canceling those projects and we have very low rates on existing debt service and future projects, we would utilize some of that funding to pay off, and this all has to be done formally by ordinance and resolutions. But we would use some of that funding to help contribute towards paying existing debt and the debt towards future projects, so that we can keep the budget flat year over year as we add on all these projects moving forward. So it's not explicitly being reallocated, but it is going toward it ultimately will go towards paying off the debt.
Thank you, Chris, for that explanation.
Lizette, do you wish to add anything before I go to the council president?
The only thing is, and Chris can confirm, that if these groups do donate, we would have to set up a trust fund to accept those donations, and that would require a dedication by writer for the state to approve the trust fund. And then any donations will be deposited to that special fund and then applied to the project.
Chris?
There are a couple of mechanisms to do that. That's one of the ways. We discussed Chapter 159s at our last meeting. That's another option. Depending on how we word this ordinance, we can talk to bond counsel about having a provision that would allow us to apply it directly to the debt authorization and to reduce it directly. It really depends on how we move forward with the project and whether, what we think that our chances of receiving the pledges. Obviously, we want to be closer to the 100% if we're going to be including it in language in our ordinance. If we're not sure yet, then we'll go one of the other routes, either a dedication by rider or a Chapter 159.
Okay, so that's something you and Lizette will work out and advise council if action needs to take place.
Yes.
Excellent. Council President Kanigo.
Thank you. The KGB committee, the ad hoc committee of the council and Lizette met for the first time on Thursday night. That was just a preliminary meeting to address how we're going to move forward. We have come up with a scheme, and that includes meetings with the individual stakeholders as we have designated them, Regal, Little League, adult softball, soccer, and so forth. Those meetings will be scheduled in the upcoming future. One of the questions, of course, that we were going to ask was that they continue to support this project financially, as they had said before. I have no reason to believe that at the very least Regal, since they're one of the main stakeholders in this project, will contribute as they have pledged in the past, and it is my understanding that they have met and supported this already. That being said, we will be asking all the stakeholders, because the initial meeting that took place before we moved to Roosevelt as a possibility, before we started exploring with the Board of Education the possibility of putting all the money into Roosevelt, that meeting was where they had all said that they would contribute money to the project. And at that time, KGB was in fact what we were looking at. If the council members who were there at the time recall, after those initial meetings, we then went into a session where the public came and voiced their displeasure at us not having vetted Roosevelt further as a possibility. And so we turned to Roosevelt and the Board of Education for 2 years, which ended up being wasted years in trying to get this project done at Roosevelt. So now we're back at KGB, but those funds that were promised by the leagues were promised at a time that KGB was being looked at. So I see no reason why they would back out at this point.
All right. Constantine has a question. We're going to come to Constantine's question after we finish with parks and fields. Is there any other member of council or of committee who would like to ask a question, make a comment, or a recommendation in regards to picnic tables, trash cans, KGB ball field upgrade phase 1, phase 2, concrete upgrade, Little League building, and exercise equipment? Is there any other question? Without objection, we will tentatively approve the park and field portion of the capital improvement of the capital plan. Is there objection? Hearing none, we will now return for a moment to facilities improvements. There was a question from Constantine. He is with us by phone, I think. does not have camera capability. His question was,
No, I didn't put a camera on. Sorry, Mayor.
oh, no, okay, Constantine. Constantine, you wanted to know what you can speak to your question. Go ahead, Constantine. All right. So his question is, does monitoring including recording too? Carolyn, and since initially we began talking about this, I believe the answer is yes to that. Carolyn, is that correct?
Correct. It goes on, it stays on the system, but it does stay for a certain amount of days, and then, you know, then it kind of goes over. I think that depends on how much like gigs you have on your system and how you have it set, but typically I think it's 30 days or so.
Okay. Constantine, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, because I have Arlo, and that's about the same deal, and they're a lot cheaper, and they're very good cameras, and they can be connected to the Wi-Fi instead of wiring everything. So if we put the Wi-Fi in, Arlo would be best for the fit.
Okay. Carolyn will take that into account and research that with the other programs or equipment that may be available. I thought I saw a hand, and no, I do not. Councilman Gordier, did you have a comment? And yes, Councilman Gordier.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to ask Carolyn about the exercise equipment. Could she go into that a little bit and say exactly what that is?
Sure, no problem. So it is referred to as a fitness court. It's Tom's River and Clifton are actually, Tom's River installed this court and Clifton is working on it, but it's through, I've done a lot of research on different styles. There's so many options out there. But this court is, I believe, to be more user friendly for all ages, because it's more like plyometric style, where there's boxes and rings and things to do push-ups. It's like an activity court. And in addition, this is through the National Fitness Campaign. So it's also like a partnership that you get with this campaign. There's apps that you could follow. They help you train ambassadors within your own town that help drive fitness. So it really is like a whole campaign to put fitness and wellness into your town. So there's more support within this. And they also run yearly competitions and challenges through the app that would help drive more fitness and wellness into the community.
Gordier, does that satisfy your question, or did you want to?
So what kind of equipment? Like pull-up bars?
Correct. It's like pull-up bars and rings, all different level for your whole body. But yeah, it's like plyometrics. It's not like a machine. You would be using your own body weight. And the thing with that style is anybody could do it. You know, you don't have to do a full pull-up. There's different modifications, levels to it. I wish I was able to show you a picture right now of what it looks like. I have that with me.
Councilman, do you need this because you're reconsidering your vote, or is this for informational purposes?
Well, Mayor, I just wanted to kind of know what we're voting on if we're spending $43,000.
The reason I ask that is because we're not technically voting on it right now. We will be voting on it during the introduction.
Right.
Wondering if she can send that information by email.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. I'm not opposed to, I'm definitely not opposed to upgrades to our parks.
No, I didn't think you were. So Carolyn, why don't you, Carolyn, please send a copy of all this information to every member of council and every member of the Citizen Budget Committee. And if the budget committee has concerns, we can do an emergency meeting at some future date. But for the sake of efficiency, I think unless there's objection, let's see if there are any objection. First, our BA, Ms. Apatella.
Yes, the 43,500 placeholder, that whatever the project will be for the following year, that placeholder involves the grant writing aspect as well as engineering for whatever project is coming forward. That's like a standard rate. So that's just a standard amount as a placeholder to put in. If whatever the grant project is changes before the application deadline, that 43 stays the same.
Okay. Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, for the public edification, where would that be placed in Memorial Park, Carolyn? If you can go into that, please.
Yes, sure. We are looking at a few locations right now with the committee, but it's the size of basically a half of a tennis court, so it's not a huge space, but we're looking near the playground area towards the center of all activity, because I do believe that it's an opportunity for parents to work out while their children are playing in the playground. So we're trying to keep it centralized at Memorial Park. And I also believe this would be a great benefit for the leagues as well, to help with kind of fitness training, all the athletes. So.
Does that satisfy Councilwoman? Yes, good.
Thank you, yes.
Madam Chair, Finance Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 170,000 seems like a lot of money for some bars. Is that really the best we can do?
It needs to go on a platform. There's a safety foundation. So there's more to just like installing bars. You do need safety surface as well. So you have to prep the grounds. There's, you have to apply the platform. So it's not just putting a few poles into the ground.
So this looks like we're going to have a wider conversation about this. We can we've already tentatively approved it, but we can revisit it either in a full budget committee meeting or a council meeting. But first, I think what we need is some information, which Carolyn will be sending. Council President Kaniga.
I just, maybe I misunderstood earlier. I thought this was all going to be paid for between an open space grant and another grant. So this is just kind of money that we're putting out now, but later on we're going to get back. So I don't know if we really need to discuss this all that much if that's the case, but perhaps some clarification on that.
Carolyn?
Yeah, correct. So this is through a grant. So the county would do the match, and then these projects come through open space.
Lizette, Ms. Apatella?
Yes, and just to add, when the time comes, the county already announced the grant funding for the 2022 open space, and the way it works is first a letter of intent has to be approved by the governing body. So at that time, in addition to Carolyn providing some of the information, at that time with the letter of intent, all the information regarding the entire project, as with regards to the purchase of the hardware and the installation costs, that will be presented to the governing body. And then if that's approved, after the letter of intent is submitted, in order to submit the grant application, there is a full public hearing that has to be noticed in the paper with a display ad, and it's its own public hearing. So there will be plenty of opportunity to delve into all the details of the project.
Okay, if there is no objection, we have finished with the capital. We will be moving into operation. But if we could do a firm 5-minute break, Could we do is there any objection to doing a 5-minute restroom break? No? All right, everybody, let's return at 9:17, 9:17. Okay, it's 9:17. If we can reconvene, that'd be great. We are now done with the capital portion. We're moving into the operational portion. And so we're going to be handing this over to our BA, Ms. Appertella. She's going to be moving us through our budget book. And Mr. Bagtaglia will be placing on the screen the appropriate portions as needed as we move through. Let me just make sure that Chris is here. Chris, are you with us? Yes, good. Ms. Appertella is our business administrator. She came on with the borough January 1st. We are very pleased to have her, and she's doing a phenomenal job. So Ms. Appertella, if you would please take over.
But first, I see that Councilwoman Bastide has her hand raised, so.
Okay, Councilwoman Bastide.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I just, last week I had asked Ms. Appertella to reach out to the county regarding a possible community energy grant funding we may have to apply towards possible capital expense. And I know she did speak with the county, and I thought before we move off capital completely, if she could just inform the council and the committee of what she found out.
Excellent point. Ms. Appertella.
Yes, that program was temporarily suspended due to COVID, but it will ramp up again. And from what the county purchasing agent had told me is with regards to a potential vehicle for traffic duty as an electric vehicle, they are petitioning the state legislature to fund it as a pilot program. So that information will be forthcoming. They're also working with Ramapo College to come up with the overall concept plan of the program. And once that's finalized, they'll be reaching out to the municipalities and their municipal green teams. And part of that program is working with a specific consultant who is going to take all the information of all these green initiatives and tailor it to the municipalities and say, this is what would apply to the municipality. These are the different programs. These are the potential costs. These are the potential funding sources. Like if a municipality wants to start building a green fleet, PSC&G has a program where they install the charging station. If there's like a downtown parking area, they partnered, I believe the company's called Volta to install the charging stations for those parking areas. So a lot of information will be forthcoming, and it's not just pages and pages of legislation. It will be tailored to municipalities. That way, each municipality will have a roadmap based on their governing body desires.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. At this point, as I said, Ms. Appertella is going to take us through the operating budget, and she will be doing that based on our book and any pertinent information that may need to come up. She'll direct Mr. Bagtaglia to bring that up. Ms. Appertella.
Our finance chair also has a raised hand before I delve
sorry.
into anything.
At this point, you can lead on that. Go ahead.
Just a quick point. I had spoken to the previous chair for land use via email, and not sure if anything happened about this, but the master plan needs to get modified, I think, to account for the charging stations so that it doesn't have to be done on an exceptional basis, but can just be done automatically. Lisette, just so you know,
Okay.
maybe to take care of that. Thanks.
Okay, so if the two of you can please, or either one of you, please send an email to Chris Caslin, who is the chair of the land use board, and give him a heads up to that fact, and so that the land use board, I would believe, have to take the initiative with that.
Okay. So seeing no further questions, we could start on your budget book. The first tab is administration, and that will cover, Chris, operating account numbers 100, which is general administration, then 155 legal, and 165 engineering. 174 is there for economic development, but there doesn't appear to have any recent funding history. So I don't know if anyone has questions on any of the accounts on that tab.
Do we have something we can put up on the screen so we can look at it together, and so that anybody who might want to look at it in the future?
Okay. So what Chris is sharing is from our accounting system, Edmund Software. So what you're seeing is what Chris and I and all the departments see on a daily basis. This is the budget portion, and we also use this system to put in all our requisitions that eventually become purchase orders for expenses based off the different line items that you see here.
Councilwoman Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wondering on the professional services line, can you just remind me how much why it popped up so much in 2020?
That line was used for the interim borough administrator services with the Canning Group.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Lizette, continue.
Okay, so that was administration, which is 100. The next is legal services, 155. And that covers all our legal representation as our land use attorney, labor relations, tax appeal, our borough attorney, anything that would require redevelopment, that's all covered under that account.
Seeing no hands, we'll give it a few more moments.
I'm sorry, I have one quick question.
Yes, Claudia, Claudia, it just helps if you raise it in the.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay, but go ahead.
You said the Canning Group. Who's the Canning Group?
Go ahead, Lizette, you can do it.
Yeah, the Canning Group, there are a handful of organizations that have retired licensed professionals. So they provide interim services throughout the state, whether it's for administrators, sometimes QPA services, chief financial officer, and they also do municipal studies, whether it's a consolidation study or an efficiency study. Canning Group is one of a handful. There's Jersey Professional Management, Government Management Advisors.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, Lizette, go ahead.
So if there are no questions under labor, then the next account is 165 engineering services. And that covers our borough engineers retainer, as well as anything involving special projects, redevelopment.
Councilwoman Kaufman.
Thank you. So the retainer went from 5,000 to 24,000. Is that correct last year?
Well, 24,000 is what was in the resolution authorizing his service, the engineering firm services.
So what's the retainer piece of that for this year versus the resolution that we're going to have, I guess?
The 24,000 was reflected in the retainer for the appointment of the borough engineer that's adopted at the reorganization meeting.
Okay. So I'm just wondering why it popped up so much last year. I don't know.
Um,
Guess it's kind of water under the bridge, but
from what I see last year, 24,000 was spent
okay.
under engineering services and retainer. So yeah, that's reflective of just having I don't know how it was done in prior years, but in 2020 that reflects the actual agreement that is adopted by the governing body.
Okay, and then just also the redevelopment line is, how long is that going to continue for? I see it's 2 years in a row. Is that going to continue in 2022?
From the expenditures I see, it's project-based, like it dealt with the New Bridge Landing, professional services with COA, Kindercamac redevelopment planning. So that will vary based on the type of activities that the borough has.
Okay, do you have any idea whether it's going to be continuing in 2022? I know I'm kind of.
It's quite possible because I know sometime last year, 2 areas were designated as areas of need of redevelopment. So, and there may be something going on with other portions of the town. So like I said, it's activity based on potential projects. But it's not a standard rate that can be accounted for year after year as a known quantity.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Vestine?
I lowered my hand. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other person? Continue, Lizette.
And like I said, there was an account after that. I just lost my place. Under economic development, 174. But I don't see, the only thing that I've seen here is in one line at the very bottom under other expenses. I don't believe. I don't believe I have that history with me. But the only thing that happened was 6,000, something happened in 2019 where there was $7,000 that had to be transferred. And then in 2020, there was a $6,000 appropriation in which 4,900 was encumbered or spent. So we just put the 6,000 as a placeholder.
If there's no questions, we can move forward.
So the next tab involves the regular accounts that I would equate to under the borough clerk. The first one is 110, which is the mayor and council operating line.
Are there any questions?
Mayor or
Chris, go ahead.
Or Lizette, would it be easier for me to bring up the summary of the accounts rather than flipping through the individual detail? Like for all the small accounts, at least, what for like you know, the office expense accounts, if I just bring up the total clerk operating account on the screen rather than the detail.
If there's no objection to the committee, I think that this would be a more efficient way to move forward. Is there objection? Hearing none, Chris, why don't you proceed in that manner? Plus, the committee has their books, so if they have an individual question, we can certainly deal with that and go back to those separate accounts.
Okay. So that was mayor and council. Then, according to your book, after that is account 101, public information.
If you could explain what these accounts would mean for not just the members of the committee, but for the benefit of the public, that would be helpful.
Sure. So the public information account covers expenses associated with our IT services, our IT vendor, the hosting of the borough website, paying for the internet domain name, our email service, message board maintenance, the Nixle account, and anything that's deemed as social media, as far as putting information out for the public. Like last year, that account was used to purchase lawn signs about the census. And that helped with the mailing of community information about the census. And it also covers internet service at Borough Hall, so the council meetings can be streamed virtually, and also the equipment used to transmit and broadcast our council meetings. So that all falls under the public information line.
Okay, are there any questions? Comments? Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so that was 110 was done, that was made by council. And then the next account is 120, that's the municipal clerk's line. If there are any questions on that account?
Seeing none, continue.
Seeing none, the next tab in your book are various accounts associated with, that I figured would be associated with the finance department. So the first account is 130, financial administration. If there are no questions.
Can you just remind me, what was the stipend for last year? The 5,500?
I don't have that.
Okay.
That information.
Okay.
Councilwoman, where are you looking to see that?
It's 130-017.
Okay, that was a merit increase that was given to some of the employees in the finance office when we did the major upgrade to the finance system.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Lizette, continue.
Okay, so then if there are no other questions, 135 is for the audit service, funding that's paid to the borough auditor. And then 145 is revenue administration. That involves tax collection. The next one in the book, Chris, you'll probably have to scroll down, is account 27,332, accumulated absences. Okay, then the next sheet is account 30-425, 100 salary adjustment line. Okay. Then the next one is
Hold. Mr. Ruhlman.
Okay.
Mr. Ruhlman, do you have a question or comment? You're muted, Mr. Ruhlman. Al, you're muted. Still muted.
So, there we go.
We can hear you.
I'm getting there. Can we go back a little bit?
Can we go back? Yes, but you have to speak into the mic because we can
Okay,
barely
can we go back to the accumulated absences?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just noticed that there was nothing in 17, 18, and 19. There was a sizable amount in 20, and then it's budgeted for, it looks like a placeholder. Can that just be explained a little bit more?
Chris or Lizette, who would like? Chris, you take it. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. The accumulated absence account has historically had $5 in it. The intent was really just a placeholder so that we had the ability to transfer into it in the event that we need to. Last year, we did transfer into it. We did have a retiree last year at the end of the year that we anticipated having to pay some accrued sick and vacation time out. So the accumulated absence account is actually a trust fund that we reserve year over year. So we've been funding it little by little so that when an employee leaves and they have severance payments, we don't see a spike in our budget. So it just gives us the opportunity to transfer any leftover funds. So if we have a full-time hire that decides to put in their retirement papers towards the middle or end of this year, and we budgeted the full amount because we weren't aware that they were going to retire, we might put the leftover money that was budgeted for them into this accumulated absence reserve because they might have taken a severance payment over the following 3 years that we would pay. So we don't want to have to burden the budget each year for that. So it's just a trust account that's set up.
Okay. Okay, well, that explanation works very well if somebody leaves mid-year, but what happens if somebody leaves at the end of the year and they've accumulated they've used their entire salary line, and then all of a sudden realize that you have another, I don't know, $16,000 in severance that you have to pay out?
The same thing applies. It is a trust fund, so it's not specific to employees. We can fund it over a number of years up to our total accumulated absence liability, which we are required to have as part of our audit every year. So, right now, the way that it was funded prior to me starting was Alan had a list of all of the employees and what their liabilities were, and he would go through it and he would have a pretty good idea of who was going to be retiring and when they were going to be retiring, and he would make sure there was enough money in the trust fund. Actually, coincidentally and ironically, he was the last one to retire right before I started, and he had put money aside for his severance pay in that fund. So it was very convenient when I showed up and I didn't have to worry about where that money was coming from. So that's what we're doing moving forward as well. We do have a list of all the employees that have accumulated liabilities, and as they start to discuss retirement dates, I mean, they don't really shock us with oh, I'm going to retire tomorrow. They usually plan a little bit ahead of time, so it does give us some time to work it out.
Okay, so that's another account, that accumulated account. That's not this account. This account is just where to pay it out from.
This account is actually the funding source for that account. It is another account. It is in the trust fund. So piggybacking on what Lizette had said earlier about a dedication by rider, the borough does have a dedication by rider for this that was approved by the Division of Local Government Services. And this account is the feeder for that.
Okay, I think I understand that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr.
No,
Mayor.
Al, I was going to go to somebody else. I thought you were finished. Go ahead.
Okay, that's all right. We don't need to go any further. I believe you, and I think it's okay. Thank you.
Mr. Krautheimer, I saw your hand went up and then it went back down. Do you still wish to make a comment or question?
No, I'm hit it by accident. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Chris, how much is there in that reserve account right now versus what we're going to need to have at some point?
Sorry, I'm pulling up the exact figure, but the way that it's funded right now, was just enough to pay for the payment for the chief that just recently retired. That was the last big retirement that occurred. And we do have enough in there. You will not see a payment in the 2021 budget for the amount that we owe him for 2021. So that is coming from the accumulated absence reserve. I started the year with about 80,000. It's just shy of $80,000 in that account. And we will fund that a little bit more this year at the end of the year. And I will be funding it from our appropriation reserves, which is last year's budget. So right before it lapses to fund balance, we make sure that we send an appropriate amount into that accumulated absence reserve to make sure that we are at least funding the things that we know about for the immediately following year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, seeing no other hands and nothing in the chat, Lizette, please continue.
Okay. The next line is budgeted grants 41-100-000. And then after that is the chapter
Hold
159.
on. Chris, did you want to say something?
Sorry, I can just jump in real quick. Those are going to change up until the day that we introduce the budget. So anything that we get awarded between now and the day that we introduce the budget, we will include there. You know, those are clean communities grants, recycling tonnage grants, body armor grants, traffic grants that the police department gets. Anything like that, we would include.
All right, Lizette.
Okay, and then right after that is the 159, and those are for the grants that are received after the budget's adopted. Okay.
Continue.
And then it's account 50-899-100, the reserve for uncollected taxes. If there are no other questions, that completes the finance tab.
Lizette, where is BCUA?
It's its own account. I think it's under
Well,
utilities.
All right, we'll wait until we get there, because I know that always is an interesting number that we have to look at. But we'll wait until we get to utilities. Continue.
Okay. So the next account is the fire department. They have two sublines. It's 25-255.
Go ahead.
In this one, since the budget was printed in the past couple of days, there were a couple of lines that had to be amended. So the low SAP line for fire, we need to enter 45,000. Is that correct, Chris? In your book, it's line 1-0125-255-300.
Yes, that's correct. We updated that for 45,900,
Mm-hmm.
which is the same as what was in there last year.
And then their POSHA line, that was zeroed out because they haven't spent any money on that in the last 3 years.
I see Council President Kanigo and then Chairwoman Kaufman.
Thank you. Don't we have a whole bunch of new firefighters? I think maybe 10 this year. Do we have to increase that low SAP line, or am I completely getting it wrong?
I don't know if you want for Chief Sanders to chime in at this point, or whether Lizette or Chris, you want to take that.
Well, I believe low SAP is based on an accumulation of activity points from the prior year. So I don't think we'll see the activity of the 10 new hires until next year's budget.
Chief Sanders, do you wish to comment on that?
The 45 that was appropriated should be fine.
Chris, any comment?
Nope, that I was just going to defer to the chief to see if he felt that that was going to be adequate based on the participation.
Council President, do you have a follow-up question?
No, thank you, Mayor.
All right. Councilwoman Kaufman, our finance chair.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering about line 255-043.
255.
What's going on with that line? What's going on with that line?
That's the firefighters expense reimbursement.
So it was 0 for last year?
I see historically, Chief Sanders could chime in on this. There was money appropriated in 2018 and spent. Nothing in 19 and 20, and then it's requested this year.
Chief Sanders, if you could speak to that.
Sure. That, for the past 2 years, that money was transferred from the fire department account into the payroll account, which now handles our expenses for the reimbursement. And that's usually done by the first of the year.
So,
are you, no, go ahead, Councilman Kaufman.
sorry, so that money is, I'm not sure where that money got accounted for somewhere else last year?
Apparently, Ray had taken that expense out for the past 2 years and placed it into the payroll department based on findings of an audit that was performed back in 2019. So the fire department, all we did was submit to Chris the amounts for each firefighter, and that was done through a payroll with Gita.
Chris, do you want to address that?
Yeah, this is good news. This is in the budget twice. We can pull 45,000 out. If we scroll up, so the 45,000 that's here, it actually was a little bit more last year. So we have $62,000 in our salary and wage line. 62,000 was actually spent last year, and we can pull the $45,000 out as a result. So that will help us quite a bit.
Michelle, thank you. Awesome job. Good catch.
I just saved you 45,000.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? Before Councilwoman Kaufman, I see Constantine's hands up, but do you have a follow-up, Councilwoman Kaufman, before I go to Constantine?
I'm done.
Yes, the same way can go for, although it's a small amount, it's for travel. So it's also an expense that was probably paid through the payroll, the $250.
You're talking about line number 255-045?
Yes, that's the one.
Chris, could you address that, or Ms. Apatella?
That anytime you see a travel line, that would probably be a mileage reimbursement. But with COVID, no one is really going anywhere. Everybody's doing everything virtually. But at some point, there will be some form of hybrid between virtual and back to where we were. So I wouldn't recommend zeroing out any travel lines, because once you eliminate a line, it's hard to put it back in.
But it's not reimbursed through the payroll, travel and expense?
Travel? No.
Oh, okay.
No, they would have, whenever anybody wants a reimbursement in travel, they have to submit proof of mileage, proof of any tolls that were paid.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Oh, excellent.
The next account is fire prevention, account 265, uniform fire safety. That account has remained flat. Um, Next is operating account 150, the tax assessor. That also has remained flat. Okay.
Lisa,
I'm sorry, Councilman Kaufman, my head was down. I didn't see your hand. I
Sorry.
apologize.
I did just have a question, professional services and costs, line 150-028. So what is that?
Professional service and costs is most likely if we need appraisal work done. It would come out of that line.
How
that's
come we
a-
never had that before 2019, like 2019 and prior?
Depending on the situation, it might have come out of legal. I've seen in other municipalities appraisal lines come out of legal, but it's more of an assessment function.
Yeah, I think you're going to see that a couple of places. If I remember correctly, and I may be wrong, Raymond wanted to delineate all those separate things. So they should be popping up all across the budget from 2019.
I
Now,
can also jump in on this.
Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, the $5,000 that was put in there was a result of awarding a not to exceed amount for a professional. That $5,000 is actually still open, so it's more of a placeholder in case we need them, not because we're actually using them regularly. If that makes sense.
Okay, Councilman Kaufman, follow up.
No, great, thank you.
All right, great. I'll keep my eyes up from now on. Lizette, continue.
Okay, next account is land use, 180, 21-180 and 185 for the land use and zoning board. Okay. So, no questions. Next is construction, 195 construction official. There has been a change in that. 35,100 had to be added under professional services. That covers the costs associated with the zoning officer. So there's a change in that'll be changed from what's written in your book.
Can you give us the line?
It is 1-01-22-195-028.
So in my book, I see 35,120.21, and you're saying we're now putting 20, and we're adding it to 2021.
Correct.
Okay, so we're really just continuing from 2020, correct?
Correct.
Questions? Continue.
Okay. The next account is 22-200. That's code enforcement. Okay. After that, we move to accounts 330 and 340, public health and animal control. Okay. Then we move over to the library, account 390, and their electricity account 430. So if Dara's still here, if you have any
Hey,
particular
Lydia.
questions.
I'm here for questions.
Councilwoman Kaufman?
So did that electricity bill for the library really drop by that much last year?
Our electricity bill is handled by the borough, and I very much doubt if it dropped. I would say it's more or less flat. I'm not sure why we have a separate line in there now. I believe our electricity is calculated based on a percentage, and then that's charged back to the library.
There are separate meters for the different buildings. I'll have to check with accounts payable and pull the invoices to see if I know that PSE&G in the last couple of years have consolidated a lot of accounts. I'm wondering if maybe that happened here, where they moved everything to one bill and everything is being charged back to the borough. The reason why it's separated in general is because the library is an outside of the cap item as compared to the rest of the borough. So if you have cap space issues, and even if you don't, you would put the costs associated with the library in a separate section than those that are specific to buildings. So I'll take a look at the detail on this. I'll make myself a note and see if that's what happened with the PSE&G bill.
I saw some hands go up and go back down. I assume that those questions are been withdrawn. I see a hand now, Councilwoman Kinsella. Indira, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Mayor. I was just thinking that perhaps it did actually go down due to library being closed most of the 2020. I mean, that would make sense that it would be so significantly lower.
Could I correct you there, Indira, Councilwoman?
Sure.
Library was only actually closed for 3 months, almost 3 months. We opened up in June for curbside, but of course during those 3 months, the electricity, it may have been, all of the lights may not have been on, but some of the lights were on. I was there for a good bit of time, and 1 or 2 of the staff were there as well for those 3 months. So from June onwards, so yeah, so it would have dropped, but not like drastically over the last year. So yeah, so we started with full staff back in the library in late June, and then in July we actually allowed the public to come in and browse. So from since then we've been more or less open to the public all of that time. So no savings really, except for those 3 months when we were closed, but some people in the building.
Okay, thanks, Dara.
All right, so Chris is going to look into that, and I'm sure he'll send a memo around so that we can understand that issue later. If there are no more further questions, we'll move on.
Yes, the next tab involves municipal court. It has line accounts 275 for the prosecutor, 490 for municipal court, 495 for the public defender.
Councilwoman Kaufman.
So just wondering, the professional services, is that just another one of those Ray split outs that happened everywhere?
In municipal court, professional services, yeah, it could have been like a special assignment judge. It could have been if the cost of the interpreter had, you need to provide different interpreters, Spanish, Korean, all the languages, as well as an American Sign Language interpreter. Any professional service associated with a court, depending on whatever the cases may be, especially if you're dealing with DUI cases.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, please continue. Councilwoman Kaufman, your hand's still up. You may want to lower it so that I'll know to call on you next time you ask.
Okay, then after that is recreation. What I combined in this tab are accounts 360, which is senior citizens, 370 rec commission. 375 maintenance of parks. You're gonna see it in duplicate because there are some lines that are supposed to be handled by the recreation director and other lines that apply to DPW. So those have to be split out, as well as account 420 celebration of events. If you have any questions, I think Carolyn is still on the line. Anything specifically?
Okay, Councilwoman Kinsella.
I just have a quick question of what AED is.
I believe that's for the defibrillators.
Correct. Each field has, we have 4 defibrillators at each one of our field locations, and all our volunteers are go through a training as well, how to use those.
Councilwoman Kaufman.
Thanks.
Carolyn, is the maintenance contract, is that for software that you have?
Correct. That's our copier, and I believe our community pass is in that line as well.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ruhlman.
There we go. Okay. This is line.
Al, you got to talk into the mic.
I'm sorry. This is line 360-100. Other general group. In 2020, I guess the actual was 7,727, which seems to be fairly static for previous years, at least against the actual versus the appropriated. In 20, it dropped significantly, but yet we're budgeting the same amount. Can just be explained?
Yes, that line is used for the rental at the temple for SCORE to meet. And
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
they haven't met since the pandemic, and we're hoping to resume sometime this year. We've tentatively told them, fingers crossed, September, but we're not sure. But we do have to keep that line funded for whenever we resume to some sort of normal activity.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none?
I think we should go to the maintenance of parks line, so we could delineate what lines recreation needs access to and what lines have to be moved over to DPW.
Okay. Al, if you could just lower your hand. Yeah, you did. Great. No problem. Go ahead, Ms. Appertella.
Yeah, so that would be 28-375. And I would need Carolyn and Jason to chime in to indicate what lines they spend funding from, so it could be attributed to the proper department.
Do you want to go line by line, Lizette?
Sure,
Jason and Carolyn, would you please unmute yourself? Go ahead, Lizette.
Okay, so we have the maintenance under maintenance of parks, Soldier Memorial Park, and then flags and flagpoles.
I can help out with this to really go fast through this.
Okay.
The Soldier and Memorial Parks, the 375-100 line, that the DPW handles. That's to maintain the parks Soldier at Memorial. The flag on Continental and Bogart, that was taken out for this year because it was fixed in 2020. There was no other poles that were metal that were rotted on the bottom throughout the borough and all in good standings. So we eliminated that 3,500, but we would normally have that line. Flag poles and flags, that's to replace all the flags throughout the borough. The DPW maintains that line. Mowers and trimmers, the Department of Public Works maintains that. That's buy new mowers and keep the mowers that we have for parts and all that. Ball fields and clay would be Carolyn's line, parks. That's for her to get the ball field clay and to get the guys to recut the fields before the leagues start. So she schedules all of that. Chemicals, this is also a recreation line. This is to put all the chemicals on the field.
Jason, just for speed, I don't know if you need to annotate, just if you could name, and then if there's questions, we can go back and annotate.
Okay. The grass seed line is the DPW. The general repair and maintenance line, this can actually be a shared line. Both can see if Carolyn needs to get something on the buildings and if I have to do something out of that line. So that could be a shared unit. And then the Board of Ed line was pretty much going to be mine if we decided to do the fields with the Board of Ed.
Lizette, is that satisfy, or do we need to go beyond that?
Chris, you'd have to break that out into a separate account, what Jason identified, and put it back in DPW, or would it just be a matter of giving permission in Edmonds to access these lines?
So actually, we can do either one of those. You know, I thought about this quite a bit. I'm wondering if we're best to keep it in maintenance of parks and just allocate the permissions so that they all have their the appropriate access. The alternative would be to move the lines that Jason handles directly into a buildings and grounds line rather than a maintenance of parks. But then you won't have the aggregation for maintenance of parks. So I'm leaning towards just changing the permissions, and they would both be working from the same budget. But I'm open to suggestions if you have any.
This is really this is an internal decision between the BA and the CFO and department heads. So without objection, we're going to move on and allow you guys to make that decision beyond the budget committee.
Okay.
All right, continue.
And then the last line for recreation is celebration of public events.
Any questions? Let's continue.
Okay. And next up is Department of Public Works. There's several lines that they cover. And I know one of the things that, I don't know if it's under repair and maintenance or in another line, we do have to increase the overtime for DPW based on how much we've had to spend in the past month with all the snow plowing.
So what do we need to change it to? I think you're talking about line 290-013, 59,752. Is that the line?
It would be overtime 013. Yeah, Chris, where did you put the extra funding for, under which DPW overtime account?
That's the one, 290-013.
Okay.
So in our books, it's currently 59,752, and you're looking to change it to 84,752.
Mm-hmm.
And that is based on actual numbers. And so would you speak to that? And then I'll ask the council if they have objection and the committee.
I'll give an overview and Jason could expand greater, but a significant amount has already been used in overtime with all the snow and plowing operations. And you still have the rest of the year to go with potential tropical storms that may hit if we have a repeat of what happened in August. You still have leaf season, as well as potential for snow in November and December of this year. And you know, it is known to still snow in March and even in the beginning of April. So we'd have to account for potential overtime costs for the remainder of this year. You know, we've been spoiled for the past 4 or 5 years with relatively quiet winters, but that's not the case this year.
Before Jason speaks, if I may, you're talking about a $25,000 increase between the two. We saved $45,000 because of Michelle Kaufman, Councilwoman Kaufman's great catch. Is 25,000 enough, or should, since we now have an unexpected savings of budget of 45, should we increase it to 30, 35, or 40? Lizette and Chris, if you could just chime in on whether that would be a good idea or a bad idea before Jason speaks.
Well, even before that, not included in this budget, and Jason can clarify, he's seeking to change an employee status to an operator. That employee is currently working out a title, and the borough does need an additional operator to operate the backhoe. So I don't know in which line exactly that change would be, in
What
which
would that,
account.
what sort of increase would that be? Jason?
That would be around $15,000, Mayor, to promote him from a laborer to a one. This was actually a promotion that was to be done last year. I didn't get it in before December. This was to fill the position that was left, and when one of the guys moved to foreman.
All right. So do you want to leave, let's deal with this issue. That 15 plus the 25 you're asking for right now is 40. That leaves 5. Jason, are you comfortable with the 84,752, or would 89,752 be a better idea?
Mayor, I am fine with the 84,752, just in case we have any more shortfalls somewhere. I will be getting into more of the recycling end with you, where we might have to move that money to.
Yeah, we're having a problem with that too because of.
Yeah, so I'm fine with that. I think that will get us to the year, and I can adjust scheduling, especially for leave season, to make that work.
And Chris and Apatella, Chris and Miss Apatella, if you could just chime in before I take questions from the committee or council. Do you have any comments or thoughts?
No comments on my end. I will, however, tell you that 45,000 is outside of the increase in the overtime, which is already built in here. So. So it's only, it would only be anything additional. So if we did add money to it, you would eat into that 45,000. That's not eating away at this already.
Okay. And Lizette, any comment?
No.
All right. So Mr. Ruhlman, Al.
I'm just a little confused as to the number. The 59,000 that's currently budgeted is for the entire year, correct?
Yes, that was what's in your book, because with the budget, we assumed that situations would be the same as last year, but this is a totally different winter, and that's why we need the different increase because of the activity.
Do you know how much we spent already of that 59,000?
I can jump in on this. So the Public Works Department is broken down to a couple of different sub departments, which is where all of the salaries and wages are allocated. So this is a portion of that. When I look at in aggregate the total amount of overtime that's been spent for the last 4 pay periods, which is just time submitted between January 1st and actually technically it would be December 15th to February 15th, since we're always a pay period behind on overtime, is about $80,000 that we spent already this year. So there were a lot of 24-hour nights or a couple of.
No. What my concern is that we have enough money. I'm not sure if we've already spent the budgeting 84,000 and change. Is that enough to carry us through?
The aggregate amount, so in the budget document that you have in front of you, it was about $114,000 when you added up all of the individual public works departments. Now, since we added 25 to that, we're at about 139,000, and we spent about 80 of it. So we have just under $60,000 for the remainder of the year.
Now, is that enough? I guess that's my question. I just saw Jason shake his head, but
Yes, I believe that is enough. Like I said, I can adjust to that number and make it work. I believe I'm looking more in the leaf season. This year's almost over for snow for the beginning part, so I can adjust to that. Yes.
okay, thank you.
All right, let's move on.
Okay, since Public Works is one of the more complex budgets, we'll just go through, have Chris scroll through the line items, so you can scroll through your book and see if anything stands out that you may have a question on. Or- That was account 290. The next account is
Hold on,
account
Councilwoman Kinsella.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question on account 305-190. It says increased tipping fee costs, and there was nothing for the previous 4 years, but then it's budgeted for 20,000, and I just want to know what that is.
Jason, do you want to take that?
Yes. Are we gonna go through this from account to account like we were doing the other ones, or are we just gonna jump for the whole block of them? Because
we
there's,
should go account by account.
yeah, because we're going all the way down to the probably the third
All right.
account in the book. I mean, I could talk on this. I have no problem.
Why don't you just briefly talk about it, and then we'll assume that that protocol from this point on.
Okay. So in the last couple of years, I talked about this in a council meeting a couple months ago. Recycling is starting to become a nightmare on the plastic side, plastic cans and glass. Whereas paper we're getting paid for, cans, plastic and all that, we do not. We pay out. It's a commodity, so it's on a sliding chain. There's no more floor prices. There's no more getting paid for it. So with that being said, we used to offset the costs with a recycling trust fund we had. That's when times were good and we were getting paid for everything. Lately, the paper has been offsetting the commingle a little bit, so we don't have to pay as much. But with the recent with our recycling trust dwindling down and more money's being paid to recycling than we're bringing in, eventually it's going to have to be absorbed by a budget line because that account will not exist anymore. The recycling trust will not be around. With that being said, and also we had a problem, if everybody knows, Atlantic Coast Fibers, our vendor, has burned down. Right now, they were the big key player in the Northeast section of the Northwest. The North section of New Jersey. That's where all the municipalities are bringing their goods. Now, since that happened, we have doubled in price because all the other vendors, it's a commodity now, and all the other vendors are trying to take it. They can't. It's a nightmare. So now they have to truck it to South Jersey, with added to the costs. So eventually this is going to have to be a line that's fully funded. So I like to take baby steps in this to start bringing it up to where it has to be at around 56,000. So, because I with papers and everything else, I don't even know if eventually paper we're going to have to pay for. At this time, we don't, but eventually that could be the case too. So where recycling is now, where it used to be, is worlds apart. So
If I could add to that before we call on Councilwoman Kaufman, this is an issue that all municipalities in the state of New Jersey, in fact, for that matter, in the United States, are going to have to deal with because China is not accepting a lot of the recycling that they used to. Now, the question then comes, somebody's going to ask, and so I might as well just surface that question. Well, why don't we stop doing this? Well, then we're going to have to add it to the tipping fee side. So and tipping fee is what our garbage collectors, that's how they charge us, you know. Go ahead.
sorry to chime in. You can't stop doing this. This is a state law.
No, I know. But what I'm saying is that it's going to become a question that mayors are going to be talking to their state assembly people, and the state assembly is going to be dealing with. And people are going to be saying, well, can we just stop that? And you can't, for a number of reasons. The first is it will just show up in another line. And second, it is a state mandate. And third, it's a question of, landfills that are becoming less and less useful. So this is a complicated question that's going to require the state to take leadership in. For our sake, for our purpose as a budget committee, we just have to figure out where we're going to put it in the budget. And as Jason's trying to do, this is very responsible. And what Chris and Miss Apatella is trying to do is they're trying to create so that we have a basic flat budget, so that we don't have spikes and valleys. And so by adding it in now, we're building the budget up so that we don't eventually have this huge amount that's added later. I think that would be a correct synopsis, but Chris or Lizette, if I've misrepresented something, feel free to chime in.
100% correct. That's exactly what we're trying to do.
Okay. Now to Councilwoman Kaufman's question.
So if the law does get changed, how much would the cost be versus what it is now?
So let me deal with that. That would not be a question that would occur in the next year or two, and we wouldn't know until the law was changed. I don't see that the Assembly or the Senate are interested in taking it up in this legislative year. What's going to have to happen is they're going to have to be more pain on the side of municipalities before the legislature try to figure out, do they need to help us with this, not help us with this? Where are we going to go with this? So I don't see this as becoming part of the legislative issue for at least 2 years, maybe 5, 6, 7, 10. So there's no answer to that question because it's a hypothetical question, and we won't. But if Chris and Lizette want to chime in, they can.
I just had 2 other DPW questions.
Sure, go ahead.
In line 305-101, why did the multifamily actual come in so much below budget last year? It was budgeted at 188, it came in at 97.
That I'll let you handle that. That's handled by usually the finance office. I think we might be, I would have to have you handle that.
That these are the Municipal Service Act bills that we actually have. They haven't been paid yet.
Yeah, the invoices are still trickling in. So as of the printing of this document, you'll see in your book, it was 94,345, and what's up on the screen, that the actual is 96,781. So those bills are coming in.
Okay, so you think that is going to probably net out to where it's supposed to be then? Is that right?
Well, it's based on the reimbursable amounts. The next meeting, there's actually going to be a resolution to transfer into this account from the appropriation reserve transfer to pay the invoices that we received from last year, but it's going to change year over year based on, I guess, tonnage and the costs that the individual homeowner associations occur as of a result of the garbage collection.
Yeah. And this is something the governing body will see at some point in this year. All the contracts, the reimbursement contracts, are outdated, some by over a decade. So Tom Sarlo is already looking into updating the contract so we could have a better anticipation of what this line will be for future years.
And for the public's benefit, Tom Sarlo is our borough attorney.
And then I just had one other question, line 26-310-179. Just wondering why that came in so much above budget for last year, if we know. So, Fire Company 1.
There must have been an expensive repair.
Chief
Yeah,
Sanders,
that
if
was
you could
all
chime
the
in.
roof leaks that we occurred on that roof for temporary repairs.
Oh.
So, and there was one POSHA thing that was out of compliance with a railing and some steps that we had to repair right away.
Thank you.
Okay, Constantine, yes. There is actually a question. Hold on, Constantine. Michelle, the finance chair had asked, and I missed it. Can Dara leave? I believe that we are done with Mr. O'Connor. If he's still here, he can leave. So once we finish with a department,
We're done?
yeah.
I've been in the meeting all morning. This is great.
So, okay, continue. Constantine, question?
Yes. I'm looking at the line 26305190 and increased tipping fee cost. Just need to know, why do we budget $20,000 this year?
The line we just went over with the recycling. Tom, you just spoke on behalf of that. That's pretty much the line. Do you want to talk on that again, Tom? With
Constantine, yeah, that's just the recycling company burnt down. We're also the monies that we would be get for plastics commingled is now we're paying out, and so as China no longer takes these products, and
Yeah.
so
Okay, I got
we're
it.
adding to the budget to keep the budget flat.
So it's related to recycling shortfall.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. All right, let's continue.
So if there are no questions, just going back in order, are we okay with the 290 line, which is the repair and maintenance line account?
I see no questions, so I would assume yes. Please move forward.
Okay, so then 26-300 are other public works functions.
Hold
If there
on,
were
Mr. Ruhlman, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just not that quick on the mouse. The sand line that we were talking about, there's an awful lot of talk on the.
Oh, we can't hear you. Start again.
I'm sorry. On the sand line that we were just talking about, the sand and salt line, there was an awful lot of talk on the television recently about salt being in short supply and not being able to get it. And when usually you can't get it, the cost goes up. I'm just curious if we feel we have enough to carry us through for the rest of the year at that $33,000 budget line.
Yes, we do. We did have a short time about 2 weeks ago where we had to get 100-ton in off the county co-op, which we usually use for emergency purposes. Lizette and I worked on it, and we had a vendor bring it in. We had to pay about double. We had enough for that storm. And recently, in the last 2 weeks, the 300-ton that was ordered from the other storms has started to come in through the co-op.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's move on.
Okay, so after 290 and 300, account 301 for parking lot maintenance. Okay. 302 is Shade Tree Commission. I grouped this in with DPW because in municipalities where I worked, where they had a Shade Tree Commission, that was administered through DPW. But for next year, since they're a little more of an independent body, I'll lump them in the administration category. And the only change in 302 involves reallocating funding. If Chris, if you could scroll if you're on it, the bottom line doesn't change. It's still going to be 44,500. It's just that in their emergency line, they had 19,000, and that's going to be broken up where 12,000 will be redistributed to tree planting for their tree planting program, and 7,000 will remain in that emergency line to address the issues that had been caused by flooding in that building. And once the insurance reimbursements come in, that reimbursement will be contra to the emergency line, and it will help with their tree planting program. And Councilwoman Montesano Cohen can chime in if I missed anything from that took place when we met with the Shade Tree Treasurer.
Thank you, Lisa. No, you cover it, and it's just a matter of cleaning this up a little bit more to address some concerns that they had. So you cover it well. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay. Next account is at 305, the recycling. If there were any other questions aside from the tipping fees. Well, there was something in your book, the recycling tax. Account, there was no, in your book, there was nothing listed in there, but we've had to readjust the budget to put in the 13,500 that was in 2020 budget.
Okay, just because people might be wondering, probably when we finish the DPW and before we begin the police, we'll take a short another 5-minute break. It seems like we're moving along very quickly, so Lizette, and unless I see a hand, just keep going.
Okay. The next account is 310, that is the buildings and grounds line.
Keep going.
Yeah, salary and wage. So if there are no questions, I don't believe there were any changes to this account. Then 315 is vehicle maintenance. And 316 is County of Bergen snow removal. Then 325 is Community Services Act. OE. There's a new account 31-510. That's stormwater expenses.
Does the council or a member of the committee need explanation of the new account? Seeing none, we will move on.
And 331, if we have, it's 27-331 is the bus.
Hold, Councilwoman Kaufman.
Sorry, just a quick question. So all those stormwater items, they're not really going to zero, are they?
There was stormwater that was broken out by department. They were all consolidated into just one stormwater account.
Thank you.
So it's just clean up there. No pun intended.
You may move on.
Okay, so then we have the bus 27-331, the transportation program. And then again, in your book, like I had mentioned, there's a duplication because I put maintenance of parks, but we already identified the line items that would be DPW, the ones that would be recreation, and the one they would share. Then in your book, the next one is account 31.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. Lisa, on the bus line, do we account for the possibility of reopening safely sometime in the year? I can see if that is accounted for.
What we have budgeted in the bus line so far is only for the part-time driver, in an attempt to resume service sometime later this year.
Okay,
If
I
we
have
could
a
discuss
follow-up, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I thought that we had 3 part-time bus drivers that were contemplated in the equation. Is that, has that changed? Maybe Jason can address that. I think he knows.
Yeah, I can address that. When we have the total here, there's not 3 bus drivers all at one time. So when, yes, the bus runs Monday through Friday, but there's only 1 bus driver on at a time. So this expense, right, the expense that's up there actually pays for all 3. Now, when it comes to funding, we're already 2 months, most likely going to be 3 or 4 months into the year before it starts. So Chris will probably be adjusting that or prorating that as we go from the previous year. But yeah, we do have 3 bus drivers. 1 is willing to come back as of now, if when we decide. But I believe that number is going to be for all 3 moving forward, because like I said, we only have 1 on at a time. It's not like we're funding all 3 and they're driving all 3 different locations and, per day.
All right. It does not seem to be follow-up, so let us continue.
Okay. And now we go to account 31-455 with the sewers. And the one figure, well, 2 figures that we don't have the actuals right now are the BCUA and the Hackensack Paramus sewer charges. So the budget is just an estimate, a conservative estimate from last year's actual, but that is subject to change.
And unfortunately, this, I mean, if you look back at those 3 years, you can see in 2018, it was over $1 million. 2019, it dropped down to 860, went up to 890. So we really don't know where this is going to land. We're hoping that we have the information from the BCUA before we actually introduce this budget. If we don't, we may want to consider building a little bit more padding into this, just in case it does come in higher. But in either scenario, we'll definitely be making phone calls to the BCUA for at least an estimate as we get closer to introduction.
This is a problem yearly, annually. This BCUA, it's like, it's worse than the lottery. You just never know what's going to occur with them. All right. Thank you. Keep going.
Okay, and
Oh,
that
hold on. Council President Kanigo.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that with this BCUA number, I think we have to assume that it's going to go up and maybe even substantially. People have been working from home and stuck inside. I got to think that this number is going to way increase. I don't know if we should maybe pad it.
The problem is guessing is very difficult with this number. We will, as Chris said, have to guess by the time we get to the introduction, but right now this is as good as, because we never got an explanation why they went from 1.004 million to 0.862. We never got a good explanation on that either. We didn't get a good explanation why they went from 0.862 to 0.892. I absolutely agree. We might need to add more, but we don't want to start jumping into that until we get close to introduction.
Am I correct that usage has some impact here, or is that an incorrect assumption?
That would make sense, but no.
Oh, no? Okay. All right, then. What about just averaging the last 3 years and using that number instead?
Yeah, we could do that. I would think it'd be close to 900. What would be the average of the 3 years?
Around 940.
Yeah, I've got 920, but if you put in the debt service number, I'm not sure if they had that split out. I'm not sure what they did prior to 2019, only because I came on in at the very end of 19 into 20. So if we add all of them together, let's take a look.
I'm getting about 922 from quick calculations. Council President, do you want to make that motion that we would change it from 900,000 to 920?
I'll make it as long as our CFO thinks that it's a good idea. I mean, I'm gonna have to defer to him on these financial matters. That's why we pay him the big bucks.
Give Chris a moment to process this. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
If we, if we look at aggregating all three of these together between the Hackensack and Paramus sewer charges, the BCUA normal payment, the BCUA debt service payment, and take an average of that, we end up at about 1,328,000. And right now we have 1,480,000. And I think that our average is going down quite a bit from the Hackensack number was pretty low. So, I think we certainly can put money. Maybe we consider putting that $45,000 that we just found in there, since that's been the only change so far. And then that can be subject to change once we get closer.
I'd make that motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
It has been moved and seconded. It is open to debate, and I would include in debate the citizens. Does anyone wish to make a comment or debate the issue of moving from 900 to 945,000? Seeing none, I am all in favor. Please say aye.
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 Any abstentions?
Aye.
Any? No? All right, Chris, change it from 900 to 945 with the understanding that we're going to try to get a more precise number before introduction.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Let's move on.
Okay, so we're done with the DPW tab. So we could go on our break and then move on to the police.
Councilman Kanigo reminded me that we had last meeting put Council President, go ahead.
Yes, last meeting we had kicked the issue of the additional flashers they were going to try to get installed to this meeting. I think we needed some information, so we had asked that Lizette go back and Jason and take a look at what those numbers were so that we could account for them for this year as well. At least, I would say at least 3 flashers as we did 3 last year.
So before you answer, just for the public's understanding, this was a capital issue. We have moved on, but we're moving back in this regards.
Yes, the information that Lieutenant Casey provided, the estimated cost per flasher is about 6,000.
Was that under vehicles and equipment police, or was that under public works? Where was that? I forget.
That would be in the capital under police, because that was when we had the discussion.
Okay, so and you're saying, did you say 6,000? Did I hear that correct?
Approximately 6,000.
So, and Council President, were you saying that we were thinking about putting in 3?
Yes, but I'm also a little surprised by that 6,000 figure. I remember a figure that was higher per. So are we sure about that 6,000 per flasher?
I talked with Officer Diamond, who's running that aspect of it. He's the one that gets all the quotes and secures all that. When we were in the meeting last week, I had called him during the meeting. That's where I come up with the 6,000 was directly from him per sign.
Oh, okay, then great.
Well, There's two things. One, Council President, if you want to make a motion to add 18,000 to the police budget for those items, and then of course it can go through further scrutiny with our borough engineer, our BA, and our two LTs before introduction of the budget somewhere around March 31st. Would you
Yes,
like
sir.
to make a motion?
Yes, sir. So moved.
So we have a motion on the floor for $18,000, 6,000 for 3 flashers. Could I have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. It's open debate and discussion. Jason?
Yeah, Mayor, the reason why the prices were more money and they seem to come in more money, you have to do the ADA ramps with the flashers. So if you're gonna pick locations for the flashers, you have to fix the ADA ramps where those flashers are going. That's why each ADA ramp's around $35,000 to $4,000. It all depends where it comes in. So that would have to be planned into the ADA ramp program. Or if you wanted to do it as a separate, that's fine. But that's, again, that's why the price last time seemed to be so much money.
Okay. So here we're talking about, let's go with the larger number, 4,000. So it would not be 10,000. So this would be 30,000 instead of 18.
Plus engineering fees and everything else that go along with the soft costs, because now you got engineers. So
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. The 3 flashers that we're currently contemplating would be at the 3 schools. Wouldn't those already have the ADA ramps?
well, that's the other question. I believe in all of the Safe Streets to School grants and all the grants we have, I believe we put in all these in the grant. So in front of like Cherry Hill, there's already an ADA ramp. I believe the Bogart and Bogart Road and Continental, that's also getting flashers. That's Safe Streets to School. And when you're talking about Continental and those areas, they're all the flashers are in with that project. So again, we can look for 3 more locations.
I believe also one of the locations that Councilwoman Bastide had brought up last year was Reservoir in Kinderkamak, if I remember correctly. Maybe Councilwoman can chime in on that.
That's been on the list for several years to be addressed with a flasher.
Right.
So would that be a 4th to the 3rd?
Well, if the school flashers are already contemplated, then the school flashers can be replaced for the alternate location.
Yes, and actually we are going down Reservoir. They did do the 2 ends, so we can do the flashers on that location. I didn't know that location was on. We're also doing down Reservoir other locations with ADA. So yes, that would all be compliant. So we could move those back.
Okay, so we need some clarification, Jason. So we're saying the LT Casey gave us 6,000 per. The motion right now is for 18,000. Based on this conversation, the extra, say, the extra 4,000 for the work and say 4,000 for the soft cost, 8,000. Of the 4 that we're currently contemplating, how many would require that extra 8,000 for the handicap?
Well, again, I'm also questioning the 6,000 mark because I don't believe there's a footing involved in that quote for the light too. Now that I'm thinking about it, you have to do a concrete pad for the light. It seems like that the solar lights alone are going to be $6,000. You still have to put a base in with anchor bolts. So I don't believe that's all in this price.
Okay.
So without me seeing it, I can't really, I don't really know.
For budgetary purposes, how about we amend the motion to 30,000, which would have an impact of 1,500 on the budget, correct? 30,000, 5% of 30,000 would be 1,500?
Correct.
So why don't we amend it to 30,000 and try to do those 4, and then whatever we can do in those 4 locations, we do, and whatever we don't, we put off to next year.
Agreed. So moved.
So it has been amended by the maker. Could I have a second?
Second.
We have now amended it. We are now open to further debate or discussion. Is there further debate or discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, Lizette and Chris, we're adding 30,000 to the police capital for flashers, which would include soft costs and all construction, including ADA ramps where required. We will then, Lizette, if you can then put onto the agenda for the council's consideration, what actually we can do with that 30,000. Can we do all four sites? Can we only do 1, 2, or 3? And a recommendation. And it should also probably go to traffic and safety. So I assume that this will come before the council somewhere in May, given the work that needs to be done in preparation to the actual designations. All right, without objection, we will take a 5-minute break and then we will return for the police operational budget. Is there objection? Okay, so let's return at 10:58. 10:58, everyone. Okay, it is now 10:58. We just need to confirm that Ms. Apratella and Mr. Bagtaglia are present. As soon as they are online and we have a quorum, we can move forward. Ken.
Sorry, Tom. Yeah. Hey, just a quick question. Can we get, so I know we've added a bunch of things here or there, and I think we deleted very few, but we did delete a couple. Can Chris, remember how Alan used to give us like a running tape of like where we stand? Is Chris able to kind of do that for us? And
Yeah, absolutely he can. I think right now we're still at the $93. But yeah.
I mean, I know we added some things, so I didn't know if they were over 100. Well, what's the magic number? 148, I think is
Yeah, I
what he
think
said.
he has a live document. I think his spreadsheet is live, so he should be able to give that to us. Chris, are you with us yet?
I am here. The document that I'm working on is live. We're at $96.90, and actually, it would have been just about the same as that 93, except that I updated the rounding on it so that the tax rate rounded to 3 decimal places, which is what you'll actually see on your tax bill. So the changes were about $18,000 in total when you net aggregate everything out.
Okay, and you're using the central tendency of mean versus median, and if we use median, it's actually less, correct?
Correct.
So on the high point, it would be 96, but that's if you're using mean, but if you're using the median household, then it drops to, I think, 89, 90.
Well, interestingly, so the numbers that we're using in the 93 number that we had presented last week and the 96 that I'm referring to now, we're using 394,000 roughly as last year's number and 395,000 roughly as this year's number.
It's just for the public's understanding, what we're doing is we're saying that would be the middle, or what we call central tendency of the household property value.
Correct, and we're actually going to be that number is going to be revised because our assessors are going to revise our tax duplicate to remove a large apartment building that was included in that residential figure. So that number will actually go down quite a bit. If we drop that number year over year from those 394 and 395 to $360,000 even for both years.
Yeah.
That brings us down to last week. It would have looked like about $75.60, and this week it looks like $79.20. So let me change it quite a bit.
Yeah, so let me explain what happened. I had asked, being a math teacher, I had asked Chris through Lizette to give me mean, median, and mode. Those are the 3 central tendencies. So if somebody says, well, what's the average? It could be any one of those 3. And of course you have quartiles and stuff like that. So now which would be the most meaningful? Would it be the mode, the most common household? Would it be the median, the middle household, or would it be the mean, adding it all together and then dividing by the frequency, sum over frequency? Now, when Chris sent me that information and with what I discovered, what I noticed was that we had an apartment complex included in those numbers, which shouldn't have been there. None of the other apartment complexes were. So this was just a small but meaningful error. So so that's going to be removed. It was a so the I think the most expensive household in River Edge was somewhere around almost $1,900,000, and then the very next number up was a $14 million or $16 million apartment complex. So that's going to be removed. So the number will now accurately reflect what it will mean for our residents. And as Chris said, it's going to really actually bring the increase to the average homeowner down to about $75 to $80. So we're being very responsible as Bergen County towns look, as towns throughout New Jersey look. We have a more conservative accounting process that, thanks to former Councilman Bartoloni and former Mayor Mignon championed, that we all agreed to. We thought it was a great idea, and we adopted a more conservative policy. And with our history of a unified council working for a more conservative policy, and with all and our our AA+ rating, because we have been so responsible that that we really have been able to maintain less than $100 to the average homeowner over the entire year for all the services we offer. Ken, do you have a follow-up question? You're muted.
No, that was all. I just wanted to kind of get a, where we stood after seeing some of the numbers change and make sure that we were still hovering around that initial tax number that we talked about for the average household. So
yeah, so we're hovering around, technically we're at 96, but in practicality, we're around somewhere around 80, and we'll have a good number on that soon.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Roman.
Yeah, I have a bit of an administrative issue here. I can't see Chris's spreadsheet.
It's being projected on Zoom. Are you on Zoom?
I'm on Zoom. I can see you. I can hear you. I just can't seem to get him to work.
I don't know what to tell you.
Maybe can you click on the top right view button?
I've done that. I've done standard.
Huh.
I've done by speaker.
Try signing off and signing back on again, Al. That might help.
Sign up, just click out and start again?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Car breaks down, has 3 engineers in it. The mechanical engineer gets out, takes a hammer and starts banging around. The car doesn't stop. Electrical engineer gets out, looks to unplug and plug the battery. It doesn't work. The software engineer says, oh, we should open and close the windows. Okay. Corny jokes. I like corny jokes. Okay. Al's back in. All right. Al, if it's not working now, we don't know what to tell you. We hope it's working. I think he's back in. Yeah. All right, Lizette.
I'm good, thank you.
All right, great. It worked. Wonderful. All right, police department.
Okay, just as a side note, after we're done with police department, the remaining tabs will go rather quickly, and we just need confirmation on a salary and wage request from DPW. And then I think that should be it, aside from any questions that may arise.
Okay, who's going to present that?
Jason will, as a department head. Okay, but for current purposes now, we're still on operating, and we will be looking at the police department, which is accounts 240, 250, and 252.
Councilwoman Kaufman. You're muted, Michelle.
I just had a quick question about the police salaries. Did some of the court overtime get moved to civilian in 2020? Because I saw a big drop in the line 240-014 in 2020. I was just wondering if that was why that shift happened.
So let's give Lizette and Chris a moment to catch up. Everybody, we are now in the police operating budget. And Michelle, would you give for the committees and the council's edification, what was that number, 240 what?
So the 240-014 line went down a lot last year, and the 240-003 went up. And I was just wondering if part of the reason the 003 went up was because of court overtime moving to civilian full-time.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I'm looking at the document here, and we've got 165 between. So when we aggregate the two, the overtime and the court overtime, we've got 165 that was budgeted in. Or so let's go back another year. 18, we had 185 that was budgeted, 0 in the normal overtime line. I think that this was probably just an allocation issue when we switched over from Unidex to Edmunds. I imagine that they were probably combined. We might have separated it out last year. I don't think that there's much rationale behind it, because when I charge overtime, I charge it to the one line, unless it's outside duty, which gets charged to a trust account for the road jobs. So you can see that in 2020, all of the activity was on this account, and there's no activity on court overtime. So I think that it's just a matter of
okay,
naming and allocations.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, Lizette, continue.
Well, both lieutenants are still on. So if you have any questions about the police department budget, they can answer that.
So are there any further questions? Lizette, are you treating the budget differently from DPW, or just dealing with it as a whole, or are you going to go through it in pieces?
For DPW or police?
For police.
Police, well, 240 is their main line. I don't know if there are any changes that they may have since printing this document.
So I see 240, I see 252. So we're right now dealing with 240, right?
Yes.
Then we'll do it too. Okay, so does anybody have any question in 240? Councilwoman Matsanakam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For my own education, I wanted to understand the difference between the part-time crossing guards and part-time civilians. I don't understand. There's 0 on the civilian one, and then seems a lot on the crossing guard.
LTs?
The civilians, I can jump in just because I handled all the salary and wage accounts. The civilians are any non-uniformed employees of the police department. And actually last year, and let me just scroll up to that number again on the screen. That was the question that Councilwoman Kaufman had actually asked about why the civilians full-time went down so much. The chief was actually also considered a civilian only because the other two categories were patrol and superiors, and he was outside of the union. So this would be you have your records department, and you have some of your, I think it's just 2 employees, right? LT.
Records clerk and the chief secretary.
Secretary, that's the other position, sorry. We kind of separated everything out. The crossing guards are standalone, the dispatchers are standalone, and the civilians are just those 2 right now. And we can make the decision whether we we have the next chief salary in that line, or if we keep it in the superiors. I think that that's more of a allocation issue, all in the same budget.
Yeah, that would be an internal question between you and the business administrator. Councilwoman Monsanto Cohen, are you good or do you have a follow-up?
No, thank you.
Mr. Ruhlman.
Yeah, thank you. I just have a comment that I'd like to make about, we were talking about the monitoring, and there seemed to be a thought process that the police department would be monitoring a lot of the cameras at the rec and the schools and places like that. I just want to make sure that we keep in mind that it may require somebody additional to the dispatcher or working that police desk to have that as either a duty or as an additional duty. And that may require additional staff. So I'd just like you to keep that in mind when you start talking about continuous monitoring versus reviewing the tapes afterwards for investigative purposes. Just a comment.
All right, let's move on. Lizette, you're muted.
If there are no other questions on 240, 250 is police communications operating line.
Give everybody a moment to review that. Constantine.
Yes, I have a question on the police, if you can go back to 240. Looking at the line 240-177, it says other generated group. Although the budget was 13,000, the actual for the last 2 years came up around 7,800, 7,400. So we're still budgeting 13,000. And the next line for the 240-178, we did budget 900, but the actual came up to 2,000, and we budget 1,000 right now. And so, is there a way of explanation that we shifting the budget where the actual is a little higher, and then the actual is a little lower in the other line?
So just for everybody's purpose, this is 240, 177, 240, 178.
Right.
Lizette, Chris?
I would defer to the lieutenants. I mean, my assumption would be the reason why only 7,000 was spent instead of the 13. It may have been COVID related, but I would defer to the personnel that administers those lines.
LTs?
Yes, the training was almost non-existent this year. The academies were shut down. Any in-person this year was shut down. So that was a good portion of why that wasn't used.
Are you talking about 177 and 178 or just 177?
177, I thought that was what we were on.
And then why is 178? It was in 2020. I think Mr. Constantine's question, not Mr. Constantine's question was, it was 2,000, 2,500, then it went 900, then it went 1,000. But in 2018, it was 9,000, 9.8, then it's 2.2, then it's 2.6. Why is the assumption is that it's going to be 1,000 this year? Constantine, that was your question, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, that particular group, with why it was higher than 1,000 was a lot of the COVID related, the vehicles that had to be sanitized for various reasons throughout the pandemic, with prisoners being transported and other events unrolling that would require us to do above the normal cleaning of the vehicles, where we had to call in Serve Pro and whatnot.
Yes, but my question is that, do we need more money to budget? Because we're not done with the COVID yet. And also we saved some money in 177 on the actual. So maybe we can shift some of the money to the other category and we can cover it better in the budget.
As far as the 13,000 for 177, like I said, we have mandatory training that has to be made up. A lot of the training schedules have been shifted. So that 13,000 is going to be a pretty solid number for what we're going to need.
Oh, I see. So you're going to catch up. You're going to catch up in 2021, basically. That's why.
Plus, we have to do 21's training.
But then we don't need to increase in 178 if the actual was $2,600. So we're just budgeting $1,000 right now.
I think for 178, you'll see an increase in another area. It's in the 240,036, which is where we had quite a few. We took expenditures out of that for a lot of COVID stuff, and we increased that. We look for an increase this year of 4,000 specifically for COVID, and I think that would help offset anything above that 1,000.
Okay. Okay.
Would you agree, LT?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Councilwoman Kaufman.
Just had a question about line 240-077. It looks like it's been coming in higher than what you have allocated for this year, and I was just wondering why you think it's going to be only 11,000.
I'm sorry, which line is that?
240-077. Communication other general group.
It's on the screen, Mike.
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah. I'm just looking. I'd have to take a closer look at that to see exactly what he was, what he drew out of that. To be honest with you, it may have been something where he needed to, I'm gonna say borrow from one line to catch up on something. So I'll take a closer. I think unless LT, unless I think we have to take a closer look at that to see exactly what it is.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to, Casey, LT Walker, what we request from you is that you guys coordinate with Chris and Lizette on that. And if a change needs to occur, I think you can let us know. If it's not a major change, then the council will simply deal with it when we introduce the budget. If it's a major change, then we will call an emergency meeting of the Citizen Budget Committee.
Okay.
We're good?
Yes.
All right, Lizette. Let's continue.
Okay, so and then the police 252 is OEM. OEM expenses. That has remained flat from last year.
Yeah, looks like we can move on. If we have to move back, we can. If anybody, just because we move on doesn't mean we can't return. We're moving too quickly for anyone.
The next tab in your book has numerous line items, but they involve insurance. 23-210 is our liability insurance. And then from there, we move on to workers' compensation.
Councilwoman Kaufman?
So just wondering why the volunteer fire department was 0 for 2020 actual. That's 210-171.
It may be since the printing of this, the bill hasn't come in yet. I know
Okay.
from prior experiences, those bills come in pretty late in the beginning of the year for the prior year.
Okay, and then why are you assuming that rec 210-176 is going to go down for this year?
176. It says right there, it was based on a quote that was received on December 22nd in our book.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's carry on.
Okay, and then 215 is workers' compensation. There are only 2 line items
Council
of that.
President, can you go?
Going back to 210-174, excess, is that excess insurance? And why are we at 0 instead of the 10? Or I'm misreading it. Never mind. I'm sorry. Never mind.
All right, let's carry on.
Okay, so then after workers' comp is employee group health, 220.
All right. Oh, hold on, Mr. Roman.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry.
Al, we can't hear you when you.
I'm sorry, the first line, 090, I guess that's general liability, liability insurance?
You're talking about 220-090, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Go ahead, question?
There's a drop from the actual to the budgeted. Is that a hard number?
For the health insurance?
No, I don't know.
Employee group health.
Health. Okay,
220-090, a difference of 56,000.
Also,
No,
yeah, I believe the state bills usually run a month behind.
So we actually have a 2-month deferral. River Edge opted into a 2-month deferral on our health benefit bill. They must have done that 10 years ago, maybe further back. I mean, ultimately, we're paying 12 months each year. We're just paying November through October rather than January through December. But this is the monthly health insurance bill through the state health benefit program with the state of New Jersey. And there is always a little bit of extra in these accounts, and you have to have it in there because if an employee gets married or has a child, their plan is going to increase. And
okay, I understand that. I understand that, thank you, but I don't think that was my question. I'm sorry. I don't think I expressed it properly. This is line 210-090, and it's identified as DCMJIF.
210.
Oh, that was my fault, Al. I think I misdirected everyone.
That's
But
all right.
before we go there, everybody, just as we're moving there, Chris and Lizette, I thought we were paying back that deferment so that we could then go out if we wanted to bid for a better insurance deal.
Mayor, so what we did last year, we actually have the funding available in reserve to be able to pay it off. So it's cash in our account that we have available in the event that we do decide to move forward with a different medical program or to be able to obtain quotes if we need to pay that off. But
Either way, let's move that to an agenda item for the mayor and council to consider, because I think we should pay that off so that we can have that flexibility when and if we want to do that.
Okay, so what is the exact topic?
Chris, can you give a name to that?
You would just be discussing the SHBP deferral and ultimately whether or not it's best to pay that off now or to continue the deferral.
Okay.
All right. And now, Mr. Roman's question, and my fault for saying it wrong, 210-090.
Okay, the actual 220 was 209,000, and budgeting 194.
Al, we can't hear you again.
I'm sorry. The budgeted number, keep forgetting I can read off the screen. The budgeted number is 194,000. The actual in 2020 was 209. Now I realize it's an increase over what we had budgeted last year. My question is the 194 that we are budgeting, is that a hard number or is that an estimate? And if it's an estimate, are we taking into consideration you paid 209 last year?
Under our notes, it says it's per invoice, so that is an invoiced amount.
The 209 is an invoiced amount.
No, the 194. Whenever there is a note in your book that says like modified as a placeholder or per invoice, that note applies to the budgeted number.
Okay.
So it's not on the
Oh, I
screen
see. It
now.
says-
Look in your
okay.
book, and if you look in your book, you'll
I see it.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, so we got a reduction in our insurance premiums over last year by $25,000. Am I doing that calculation correctly? 15,000?
The
Yeah,
the GIF bill is a consolidated bill. I think that this is another scenario where in years prior, going back, prior to last year, there was a split between what's part of the fire department, what's part of the volunteer accounts, and some of these other lines. Recreation down here is a separate policy, but everything is other than these separate policies that we have, everything's included in that GIF line. So you can see that we didn't spend the 19,000. We do have, we spent 209 out of the 184. So we're just budgeting based on the invoices that we receive, and they do an analysis each year for all the municipalities that are part of the GIF to determine the appropriation for the each one.
okay. Just point of curiosity, when's your renewal date? Is it January 1st or July 1st?
Yes, it's January 1st, but the billing is always a quarter behind. So in 2021, we'll actually be paying the fourth quarter of 20 and the first 3 quarters of 21.
21. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at your paid for the 3 years seems to have increased, every year, and now all of a sudden you got a drop. So you've obviously done something right. That's good. If they're dropping the premiums.
I think it's also based on experience rating. So
yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
So you've done something good. You've been more careful.
I hope so. At least the employees have. I'm not taking credit for that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that 194 was a hard number and that you're not going to get a surprise next month.
Nope, that's a hard number.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Outstanding. Let's move forward.
Okay, so again, I think we left off of employee group health 220. And then after that is the health benefit waiver 221.
Okay, let's keep going.
After that is unemployment insurance. That's 23,225. After that, we have the low SAP for the ambulance corps. That is 25-260, 300.
Okay.
The next are the big ticket items, 36-471, that's PERS, the public employee retirement. And then 472 is Social Security. And 475 is PFRS, is the police and fire retirement system. And these are actual numbers as we've been notified by the state. And the last one, 478, is the Defined Contribution Retirement Program, DCRP. Those are for white collar employees that don't traditionally fall under the public employees retirement system. The next tab, it involves the utilities. That's account 31440. Yep, telephone and telegraph. You'll see in next year's budget, if you look in your budget book, it's broken down. The telephone bills are broken down by department, but we're just going to aggregate it all into one line. So next year you'll see one line with all the amounts lumped in together and then the other one zeroed out. And after 440, 445 is the hydrant service. 131. Then 446, water, sewage charges. That includes the sewer station and the parks. 447 are the petroleum products, diesel and gas. 448 is electric and natural gas billing. And
hold, Councilwoman Kaufman.
Yeah, just a quick question. Why is the sewer system as in salary and wage dropping so much for this year?
What account is that under?
455010, it's on the screen.
That was also an allocation, but for public works employees that were working under the sewer. I wasn't really sure why the allocation existed the way that it did. That's something that we're also going to be looking to consolidate even further than it is today. Right now, we have the public works employees broken down between recycling, buildings and grounds, parks maintenance, and the general public works improvements. But the fact of the matter is it's all hands on decks in every department. So we're probably going to look to consolidate all of the DPW salary and wage accounts into one salary and wage account where we can just list all the employees individually. Mm-hmm. So this sewer account is only the sewer operator.
Okay, so you're not really dropping that money off.
No, it's not coming out. It's just moving to a different line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's carry on.
Okay, next tab is our contingency account, 35-470. And that account is for unforeseeable expenses that in operating line, just like we have a contingency account in capital for items that qualify as capital expenses that have a useful life of over 5 years. And, since we're still under the pandemic with COVID, possibility of a fourth wave with the variants, it's important to have this contingent account in the event our first responders or DPW need PPE and we exhaust whatever trust fund we have. And it's important for municipalities to have this to avoid any shortfalls, especially since transfers cannot take place in the current operating year until November and December. And again, the access to this account is limited, I believe, to myself and the CFO. All other employees have access to admins, cannot withdraw from this account.
Michelle, is that an old hand or a new hand?
Sorry, just flipping back for a second to 447-166 diesel fuel. Is there a reason why that's going up so much this year? Is that just because of gas prices?
The budgeted amount is flat. I know that the gas prices went down a little bit last year, but I'll defer to Jason if he has any insight on diesel.
Yeah, we just take, that's the general. Again, this is playing the game. Some years it goes down, some years it goes high. This year, of course, with the Green Deal and fuel already going up, you know, you want to just make sure that you have enough. This is based on $3.50 a gallon when we had it as the high back in 2000 and I think 13 or 12. So we've always kept that in there at the same level, just like pretty much gasoline.
Okay, I don't know why the number in my book was different. It was 31,000 for last year.
That's I believe that's what we spent.
I can jump in. The number on the screen, you can see the 55 here. We transferred 24,000 out. So the net results on that bottom there, you can see the 24,000 was transferred into another account. So the net result, the modified budget was 31,000, but the adopted was 55.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Michelle, your hand is still up. Let's move on.
Okay,
We're in contingency.
yes, after contingency, that contingent account, then we go to emergency. Well, we have our emergency line is zeroed out. Then there's a line 46-875. That's a 5-year emergency authorization. I don't have the history to that, what that pay down is for. But it looks like there was some type of authorization that was being paid over 5 years. I'm not sure if this would be the last year or we'll see this again next year.
Yeah, I believe this is the last year. I'm just pulling it up. It's a 5-year payment. Just give me 1 second to pull that document up. I can tell you what it was for. It was recodification of ordinances that occurred in 2016, 17, 18, and 19. So you actually had small amounts in each year. This will be the last payment for the 2016 amount. And then every year, one more will drop off. But it's going to be the same amount each year, 2240. And then you'll have a part of that drop off every year.
Okay.
And the last tab in your book involves debt service. And we start at 44-901-100, the Capital Improvement Fund. That's the down payment for your bond. Your bonding, I don't know if that number will change based on the changes we've made.
Chris, do we have to change that number? I'm assuming you're live with that, but you may not be.
I am live with that. I'm just going over to my capital document. As of now, I don't think we'll have to have a change because we do have $15,000 from previous budgets still in our capital improvement fund in the capital account, which you don't see in the budget here. So we do have $165,000 total available. So as of right now, we're still okay. That is subject to change, though. That buys us $3.3 million.
Then your next line is payment for bond principal. There's nothing appropriated for note principal. Then you have $201,000 to pay off interest and bonds. There's nothing for interest on notes. And I believe the NJEIT loan principal and interest was completed. So that's why you don't see anything in this year's budget. And then the last thing you see is deferred charges in your book, 46-891835 for ordinance 1835.
Councilwoman Bastide.
Thanks, Mayor. It just dawned on me, have we received all of our reimbursements through the CARES Act? Do we have anything outstanding that would have a positive or negative impact on our budget?
We have received all the reimbursements that our OEM coordinator submitted.
Okay.
They were all applied against the expenses that occurred in 2020.
Okay.
I know that there has been talk about extensions, and we may or may not be able to continue to submit certain items. I know at the very end of the year, our coordinator was in a rush to get things in before December 31st because they did set a deadline. Mm-hmm. So I think that we're just in a holding pattern right now until we get more information about how 2021 is going to move forward.
Great, thank you.
Lizette, before I call in Mr. Rollman, do you want to add to that or anything?
There is pending legislation under the America Rescue Plan. It was adopted in the House, I think, late last night or early this morning. It is now with the Senate. They would have to reconcile the bill because I know there's an issue with the mandatory, the $15 minimum wage on the federal level. And we just have to see how the bill is reconciled and what comes back to the municipalities, because there is language for direct relief to not just states but local entities. But it's a very long bill, it's about 600 pages, and that's what's introduced. What matters is what's signed, and then how it's distributed, if it's a direct payment or some type of reimbursement request.
Councilwoman Bastide, do you have a follow-up?
I don't, thank you.
Mr. Rollman.
Yeah, am I reading this correctly? We have about $1.6 million in principal and interest that we're paying off. Is that our total amount for this year?
Chris?
Sorry, I was unmuting. Yeah, but it's about 1.47. We have 1,270,000 in principal and 201 in interest.
Okay, that's good.
And
Thank
that's
you.
on existing amortization schedules. We did just have a bond sale last year, which we helped consolidate some of that.
All right, good.
So then the one remaining outstanding matter involves DPW with their salary and wages with regards to promotion and a new laborer. And we just need a clarification on that, especially since it affects one current employee.
Lizette, do you want to speak to that, or do you want Jason to speak to that?
Chris, if you could pull up the salary and wage that you have tentatively for promotions and hires, and then Jason can elaborate on that. Okay, if you go on your salary tab, it's the 1, 2, 3, on the 4th page, the top says promotions and hires.
Okay, proceed.
Okay, so what we have here in the budget is a new hire, straight off the street from a laborer, promoting a laborer to an operator, and promoting a laborer to a general repair. That's what's in your book, but what is being proposed, I believe, are 2 promotions of laborer to operator. Is that correct, Jason?
Yes, last year we added this, last year we added a foreman's position, which we promoted for in December. By the time the end of the year ran out, I was unable to fill the vacancy that was left by the person moving to a foreman. So the one laborer or the one operator would be a replacement for the second operator down here. The second operator on your screen right now would be an extension to our operators, especially if we're getting a backhoe. And this would also bring us back up to our levels from 2016. In 2016, we had 17 employees here, 3 operators, and 2 general repairers. Where you see labor, so that's why the extra operator got put in, because this was actually a position that should have been hired for last year, but due to the end of the year, I was unable to get it in. The labor to general repair, this is a position we've always had 2 in. Rick has been working as a foreman, general repair. I'm trying to back Rick off of that a little bit so he could be ahead of the guys to get the materials and everything else and get their next jobs and actually be a foreman and have these 2 guys work behind them. This was also, we've also had these 2 positions back in 15. This will also help us in the turnover when Rick is ready to retire down the road. There's a lot to learn in this area. The new labor hire on top, that will bring us back up to the 17. That's where we were in 2018 when our superintendent deceased, and with all the new contracts coming, that was being held off to see where we were going to be. So I put that back in for this year to bring us back up to our levels where we were in 18. Any questions?
Councilman Gaudier.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification, Jason, these were all positions that we had previously budgeted for. So therefore, us pushing them off actually saved us money, and now we could actually promote these individuals and still be way under what we originally planned for. Is that correct?
Yes, in 18, these were all positions either that were here or budgeted for and never hired due to our loss of our superintendent. And then, of course, with the last 2 years with the old administrator, we still held off. Don't know why they weren't put in. But
thank you, Jason.
Further questions from the council? Liz, from the committee. Lizette, do we need a motion to approve this change? I would think we do, but I'm not sure.
You would just need consensus because official motion for the change, at least from the labor to operator, that would be ratified at your next meeting.
Okay, so without objection, is there objection to making the change?
No objection.
You actually just remained silent, but it's okay. Hearing none, it is so approved.
Okay.
Okay, are we done?
We are done. We'll just update the committee with the changes that have been made to the budget and the impact. But otherwise, we're done, and unless any other anomalies appear, I guess Chris could give this information to the auditor to start preparing the budget document.
8.5 minutes to spare. Well done, everyone. I'd like to thank all of our citizens for their part in their time and their generosity to the town and to the council. I'd like to thank our BA and our CFO for doing a phenomenal job with this. I'd like to thank the Finance Committee for the numerous hours they've put in bringing this. I'd like to thank our department chairs, all of them, those here and those who are not here, as well as very important, all of our employees who work in the finance department of the borough. Lizette, if you can convey that to them, for doing a phenomenal job of organizing, getting this ready, for doing this great job of providing this binder. Outstanding. Thank you very, very much. So if there are no comments, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there, but I want to give people a chance. Lieutenant Walker.
Yes, hi, and I think Lieutenant Casey will chime in with me on this. We took a quick look at the book to see exactly what that line concern was, and I don't know if you want to go over it now, but we figured it out.
Oh yeah, of course we do. Go ahead.
So it was line 240077. And what we found is, and LT Casey, you can jump in anytime you want. What we found is that it's a communications line, and for whatever reason, we even contacted Debbie Aiello to see if she understood why there was a line drop. She wasn't sure either. It does appear it should be more around the area of 20,000. When we look at the different things that are paid for in that, it has to do with cable bills and internet and communications with certain areas of computers and things like that.
Is there a further question? Are there other comments? Michelle, your finance chair, do you want to bring us to a close?
So Chris, you're going to adjust for that, right?
So we're going from 11,000 to 20,000.
Yes.
So we'll add 9,000 to that line.
So just wanted to thank Chris Battaglia, our CFO, thank Lisette Apertella, our BA, all of the mayor and council, all of the finance department, all of our citizens that are here with us and have taken so much time to help us with this. And thanks very much.
Would you like to make a motion?
So move to close.
And could we have a second?
Second.
I think Constantine wants to say something, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yes.
thanks, I missed it. Go ahead, Constantine.
I'd like to ask
Constantine, we're having a hard time hearing you. We still, speak up, Constantine, if you can.
Yes, I don't know if, question is, now in the Congress, you
Constantine, maybe you can type the question because we cannot hear you.
Oh, okay, so let me type the question.
Oh, now we can hear you though.
Okay. The question, this is a new right now.
I think there's a gremlin at work. Every time you go to the question, you become garbled, and when you're not, why'd you type it, Constantine?
Let's see if I, or you.
No, type it out. Type it out, Constantine. We can't hear you.
Okay, so. Well, so,
Yeah,
okay.
in the chat. You can type it out in the chat.
What will impact and when implemented will lower budget? Can you see it now?
I don't see it. Did you hit enter? Did you hit enter?
I did actually. Oh, I sent it to Chief Sanders. Oh, sorry. Let me copy then and put it again to all. So okay.
Okay, what will be the impact of the new bill from Congress, and when implemented will lower our budget? That we can't really answer that. I'm going to let Lizette address. She kind of already did address it, but the answer is we won't know until the bill is done. But Lizette, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, that is correct. There was an initial report with an amount that it was going to be a direct payment, and then there were reports saying that the smaller localities will receive a direct payment, and now those numbers are being adjusted, and that whole amount was all inclusive of not just the direct payment to the municipalities, but the number of residents that would receive a stimulus payment, the businesses that would receive a PPP assistance. So right now, everything is up in the air, and until the president signs it and it's codified in the federal level and it goes to the appropriate federal department to distribute the funding, whether it's Division of Treasury or whatnot, we still don't know. So let's pretend it's not out there and be pleasantly surprised and disappointed.
Okay, it's gonna be like a gift. Right?
Hopefully, and a good gift.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so if there are no further comments, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of closing our budget committee, assistant budget committee for the year, please say aye.
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 Any abstentions? Any opposed? All right, again, thank you, everybody. Great job. 8 hours on the dot. Well done. Take care.
Thank you all.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
And Dario and Ellen, I'll be sending you a meet in a second.